Hey, everybody. It is gas masks and hand grenades. Um, and hang on one second. I'm having a technical difficulty with my stand here. All right. We were a little late tonight. I hope some people are going to join us. But I had some issues with my voice, still have issues with my voice. So I'm going to be relying a lot on Lee tonight to help me out and get me through some of this because I'm really struggling a little bit. I unfortunately got very animated and angry with my football team tonight because they fucking shit the bed, and so we'll move on. Couple of quick disclaimers here. We're going to get into the Marillion discography, but it's going to be uh, a very select few albums. It's going to be with their original singer, Fish. He's not technically their original singer, but he's the original singer that got signed and recording wise, he's the original singer. We'll talk a little bit about the demos early on, not a lot. They're pretty, they're okay, but they're pretty. What's the word I'm looking for here? They're demos, and they're not. They're
Pretty
'80s
raw.
demos, late '70s demos, early '80s demos of a prog rock finding its feet. So we'll talk about those in a few minutes here. A couple quick disclaimers here, or note programming notes, I guess, if you will. First of all, I want to welcome Lee. How do you say your last name?
I just go by Lee G.
Lee G. Okay.
Yeah.
Lee G as my co-host tonight. It's just the two of us tonight because the discography basically we're touching on is 4 albums, 4 studio albums. We're going to talk about an EP, which I do not own. I own everything else, multiple copies, but I don't own that. And some 12-inch singles and whatnot. And we're going to talk briefly about 2 live albums that they did in with Fish as their singer. They We'll talk about how the band ended. They ended up bringing in another singer who's actually been there since 1988, 89, and they've actually put out, I believe, about 17 or 18 albums since then. I'm not as big a fan of that era of the band. I still like it, and I own quite a bit of those albums, but they're not. It's not the same band for me. Um, so real quick, I want to thank Rick at the Dreadful Minutes again for his stellar, incredible thumbnail work. And it does look like Lee and I are going to start making out, but truth be told, we've never even met in the flesh.
Yeah.
He's in Atlanta, I'm in Pennsylvania. And no offense, Lee, but you're just too fucking hairy for me. Okay.
It's just not even possible, anyways. Given our predicament. So yeah.
Anyways, I want to
thanks,
thank
Rick.
you for joining me tonight. I'm going to be drinking quite a bit through drinking liquid libation, a little bit of wine to help me kind of keep my vocal cords wet so that I can get through this. Because I did a 3-hour interview with Serge last night on his channel, and I've been talking a lot because we're in the process of getting ready to move, and I had a lot going on today. So, Marillion, they are often thought of as the flagship band for what is called the neo-prog movement. And there are a lot of bands in the neo-prog movement, but why the neo-prog movement? Well, the original OG prog movement is thought of to have started maybe in the late 60s with bands like King Crimson, Yes, Genesis, those Camel. They would be some of your big name bands, and I'm sure I'm gonna
ELP.
do you have a few there you want to add?
ELP, and then right after ELP, Gentle
Absolutely.
Giant, 1970.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gentle Giant's kind of in a little bit later, but they were a little later in the '70s, but they were pretty big there. You had oh my goodness, the Canterbury scene with
those are the big ones,
Yeah, but those are the big names that you pretty much anybody that knows music, a little bit about music, you're gonna have heard those band names before. And it was kind of thought that by the late 80s, or I'm sorry, by the late 70s rather, a lot of these bands were kind of dinosaur bands. You could also throw Pink Floyd in there, I would say too. They were pretty proggy too, and they would have been the late 60s, early 70s too. Bands like Genesis, had switched over in 1977, 78, or 80. I'm sorry, to after Duke, they kind of stopped doing the prog pieces, the
Yeah.
long
Duke was the
songs and the
last like
instrumental
mix.
songs. Right.
You know.
And yes, in 1983, I guess it was, 1980 was Drama, which is still a very, very proggy, awesome
Yeah.
fucking
But
album.
then 90125.
But they hit 90125 in 83, I believe it was. And that's when they jumped the shark into pop, rock, and more pop, actually, pop radio. Uh,
Yeah.
Bands like King Crimson never really did, although Discipline and those albums started to
They're
become a little
different.
more mainstream and a little bit more listenable.
Yeah.
And so,
Little new
what
wave element.
got
Just a little new wave element to
a little
their
bit,
just a
a
little
little
bit,
bit.
yeah.
What really became, what really kind of earmarks neo prog is that there's a mixture of musicianship and listenability, and not as much. You know, ELP is a good example. Songs like Tarkus that are 18 minutes long, that are, killer songs, but
Yeah.
they're not anything that could really be played on the radio, that anyone would play on the radio,
Yeah.
unless you were getting into the AM scene or late night FM scene where program directors could play whatever they want. They just didn't do that.
Yeah.
And it
The
was
LP
kind of,
was a moment in time for sure. They were
it,
huge and then they weren't. You
yeah.
know?
And the interesting thing is, though, King Crimson's still cruising along.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've had some ins and outs and a lot of members change. And yes, there's about 14 different variations of Yes, but they're kind of still around. Um, and Genesis is back now to do the Phil Collins retirement tour, but they really haven't done anything musically in a very long time. So the a band like Marillion that came about in late 78, 79, and I'll get into the history a little bit in a moment here. Hey, dude. Yes, yeah, right, exactly, Rick, for sure. Um, Basically, neo-prog to me is the added element of radio playability, songs that weren't necessarily always 18 minutes long and super convoluted, and with histrionic musicianship and histrionic vocals. They were a little bit more palatable. And so there's a lot of different bands we could throw in there. Bands like IQ, and a lot of
Mhm.
them were British. Most of them were British in
Yeah.
the late 70s, early 80s.
Pendragon.
Camel moved over in the 80s, and I'll let you speak in a minute, and I'll just get my thought out. But bands like Marillion, IQ, um, um, Eloy, later Eloy, not the earlier Eloy, which is more krautrock. Bands like that were, and I didn't look a ton of them up, but Spock's Beard was an American one. I mean, there's a lot of them that came about in the 80s, later 80s into the 90s, and really, Marillion kind of was in many ways probably the most popular one. They were the band that probably combined all the elements of great vocals, and we'll talk about Fish and the Peter Gabriel connection in a little bit here, and great musicianship, but they could write songs that were somewhat streamlined to get on radio. Even though they didn't necessarily set out to do that, they were able to do that, and that was a big difference with. Here we go again. I'm already getting garbage. Sorry. Oh crap. Hang on, I gotta add him back in. Oh shit, you gotta be kidding me. Fuck. I blocked him and I can't get rid of that. You gotta be kidding me.
I see it as deleted, but
Yeah.
it's still up.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Um, so go ahead. You had your take on all that I just brought out.
Yeah, I mean Marillion, in terms of like general notes, uh, they're a very fascinating band. Now, I think it is worth noting too. I'm 20 years younger than Jeff, so my experience with Marillion just naturally is going to be different. And being younger too, you don't get to choose when you're born, but revisiting some of this music, you just can't help but see it in a different context. But yeah, just like Jeff was saying, they were the flagship bearers for the neo prog movement, and I think even the bands that kind of got more popular in the '90s owe their success for Marillion. And I really do think Marillion is a band that they just get better and better and better the more you listen to them, because there's so much depth beyond
absolutely.
just the musicianship, which is so understated with Marillion. That's another thing too.
Rick pointed out one I really missed. Vandergraaf.
Oh yeah,
one of the OGs, and one of the ones that dynamically were almost different than every other prog band. And I would say they are the uber prog band in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
We're going to do a deep dive on them, but we're going to get to that some other time. So
that would be
good
fun.
point, Rick. Very good point. Go ahead, man.
Yeah. But think about it too. So compare a band like Yes and Marillion just on a lyrical level, and you can tell there's like a whole different level of depth with Marillion lyrically. And I'm not a big lyric guy. And
right.
Yes, lyrics, there's some that are better than others, like honestly, but with Marillion, like really reading those lyrics, they're allegorical. There's multiple levels to everything he's saying, and he's really brilliant on that level.
Yeah, and, Fish is kind of a modern day Bob Dylan in a lot of ways. He's able to put prose together that is pretty stunning in a lot of ways. And we're not going to get into that because I think we'll hold off and maybe do a Fish deep dive someday in the future. But Fish's lyrical abilities are really pretty hard to match in popular music. He's not very little of his. It's their depth. Again, you talk about depth in the musical sphere. Fish is incredibly deep lyrically, and the songs are topical, timely. There's very very little love song stuff. Some of the stuff is a little bit more, from script is a little bit more. It's
more
not
Genesee,
fairy tales
for sure.
Well, it's not fairy tales and unicorns like a lot of prog was back in the day. Like John Anderson. John Anderson's very esoteric and metaphysical and groovy, man. Fish was like, hey, motherfuckers, this is real life. This is the shit that we deal with every day, and love, hate, war, drug addiction. And we'll get into that when we get into individual songs, because there's a lot of depth to all these lyrics. And, He Knows You Know off of the first album, man, what a deep song. And that song was there's the artwork.
The single cover.
Yep, that's the single cover. And I was going through my first bout with my pill addiction, getting off of those. And when I got off them, that's when I got that that tattoo. It really means a lot to me, and that album means a lot to me. Let's talk a little bit about their history, and then we'll kind of hit on each album, and we'll get into each album pretty deep. So the band was formed in 1979, but it technically was two guys that were in a band called Electric Gypsy, Doug Irvine and Mick Pointer, bassist and drummer. And they played in this band. It was kind of a 60s, 70s blues rock band. And then when they kind of moved on from that, they hooked up with a guy named Brian Jelliman on keyboards. And they brought in, at that point, they had a guy named Neil Coco on, he was the original keyboardist. And they brought in a guy named Martin Jenner on guitar. And they formed this band called Silmarillion. They couldn't figure out a name for it, but they wanted to be proggy in the Genesis vein. And they, Doug was a little bit older than Mick and was into reading Tolkien. And he saw this book, The Silmarillion, on his shelf and said, man, that'd be a cool name. Somewhere along the line, they were worried, as they were starting to play out and get more notoriety in local gigs. They were a little bit afraid that they were going to get sued. So they cut off the Sil and became Marillion, which is pretty brilliant, actually. Then in, 79, Steve Rothery joins. And Steve Rothery ends up being the only remaining original member from that lineup. He's the longest OG in the band at this point because he's still there. They then also they get rid of Neil Cockrell on keys. They bring in a guy named Brian Jelliman, who's a pretty good musician, a pretty good songwriter. And so it's now Jelliman, Jenner Rothery on guitars, Doug Irvin on bass, and Mick Porter on drums. But Doug Irvin, when they start writing material and they start playing some, local schools and pubs, but Doug Irvin kind of set his sights on, if he wasn't a pop star or a professional paid musician, by the time he was 25, he decided he was going to do something else. And one day he just kind of disappeared. And he just said, I'm done. I'm out of the band. Mick Pointer says in the documentary that he's like, I didn't see him anymore. And like, that's it. I've never seen him since, which is really unusual. You'd think that when Marillion got bigger, he would have come around to gigs, but maybe he just wasn't interested in it, At that point in time, they put an ad in Musicians Player or Players something. I can't read my writing. In 1980, and they bring in two guys. They bring in the bass player named Diz.
Yep.
Where's the fuck's his last name?
Isn't it Minute?
Minute. That's it. Diz Minute. And Derek W. Dick. Yes, that's his name. Derek W. Dick. A 6'5" Scottish young lad. And he came in on vocals. They had both played in a band called the Stone Dome Band, and they were both pretty dead set on making it as professional musicians in a prog band. Let's see, here we go. This was around 1980, and they started to, under Fish's guidance, and Fish was pretty much the manager and the driving force in the band and lyricist. They started to write material. And they did a series of demos, and I'm not going to get too deep into those because some of them actually preceded Fish, with Doug Irvin on vocals and even Brian Jelliman singing a little bit. Mm-hmm. But they're decent. Did you check them out at all?
I did. Yeah.
What'd you think of them?
I thought that the He Knows You Know early version was really cool in its own way. It sounded a lot like Pink Floyd in terms of the atmospheric, and the guitar tone was way more like washy, but not in like the Rothery kind of way. So I thought it was really kind of hypnotic and had a really unique atmosphere. Like, I would buy that demo, like just on like a CD copy, if they released it now. And maybe it is on like, Marillion is just king at different like releases and like packaging everything. But,
no, they never pulled those demos out. They never did go back to those, and I think they feel like the recording quality is pretty rough.
I think that's what's cool about them.
I think it is too.
Yeah.
I mean, they're imperfect, and you can hear that in them, but they are interesting, and you can tell these guys have some interesting ideas, and if they can mine those ideas properly, there's something that's let's put it this way. It's not shocking that they achieved the success they did. However, a lot of their success was achieved through just playing a ton of gigs and supporting anyone and taking and literally making no money and being up all night and living in really shitty apartments, all, Diz and Fish and Mark Kelly later, which we'll get to Mark in a minute. Right. They just really kept their nose to the grindstone and worked hard to get to where they finally were.
They were a cult band.
They were a major cult band, exactly, until the right people saw them and they got on Radio 1, I believe it was. One quick thing to note is that Jelliman was struggling with his commitment to the band and his girlfriend and life commitments at that point in time, into 81 at this point. And basically the guys were starting to go, man, we're kind of outgrowing this guy. Maybe we need to look for another keyboardist. And they were supporting a band called Chemical Alice, which was a pretty notable band in the Aylesbury scene, the London scene. And they really liked the keyboard player, a guy named Mark Kelly. So at one point in time, after a gig that they supported him in, Fish and I believe Diz Minute went and approached Mark Kelly and said, "Hey, we really want you to join our band." And Mark seemed to kind of really like what he found Fish to be pretty charismatic, and he is
Oh yeah.
charismatic. He really is. And I'll get into that later when I talk about meeting him a couple of times. And he's commanding. He's 6'5". He's huge. He's funny. He's a storyteller. I can see where people might be drawn to him as the
Oh yeah.
leader of this band because he was during that period of time.
And anytime he was challenged, it came out. That's the thing too, with him, and that comes with the Fugazi drummer situation, which we're talking.
Yep,
about.
We're gonna get there. We'll get there then. So what they did a couple demos. The last one being, let's see, Summer of '80 had 4 tracks on called "Haunting of Gill House," "Hearn the Hunter," "Close," which actually had parts of "He Knows You Know," "The Web," and "Chelsea Monday," which ended up on the first album, "Script for a Jester's Tear," and "Lady Fantasy." And based on the success of these demos that were being passed out at every gig, free, most of them, they weren't sold, they were being passed out. Fish was relentless in going to radio and promoters and any A&R people, that anybody that he knew was in the music business, he would push hard to get them to listen to their demo or the demos. And eventually, and at this point in time, the music it's very Genesis, Camel, Yes, and Rush. There's kind of a pretty good mix of those things with the keyboards being front and center in that. So they asked Mark Kelly
There's
to
an
join.
interesting quote regarding that, if you don't mind.
Go
But
ahead.
like, it's exactly what you just said. So this is what Fish said in just like an interview. I was doing some research, and I must say, Jeff, you remember a lot of shit. You're literally verbatim going through my whole book report here. So
I got
on your
quick
point,
notes.
man.
Yeah, I got quick notes.
No, man. But basically, he was like, okay, Pointer was into Rush. That was his main thing. He wanted to be Neil Peart. And then he was also into Yes and Genesis. And then Mark Kelly, he was big into Yes. And then Fish himself, huge Genesis fan. And then Steve was Camel. So he basically said, like, that was the Venn diagram.
Yep.
Exactly like what you're saying. Like, that's and you can hear it, especially in the early stuff.
Those were the ingredients. And by the time they get to their EP, their first single in the EP, they sound like Marillion, though, I think. And we'll get there in 1 minute. I just want to roll through a couple quick points here. Gentleman leaves in '81. They bring in Mark Kelly. Again, Fish is very driven at this point. And through a series of connections and getting a spot on the BBC Friday Rock Show, they started to do regular appearances at the Marquee Club, which was a pretty big club in London that if you made it there, you were locally someone. You just didn't get to play the Marquee Club if you were no one. You had to be pretty solid. And this band gigged a lot and rehearsed a lot and played a lot. And it showed in their live performances. They were very, very good live band. After many, many Marquee Club appearances, the right kind of people started to come out, and the label, the head of the label, and I didn't write his name down, maybe you did, of Charisma Records, decided he wanted to get these guys signed. I don't remember his name. Do you?
I don't remember his name, but I remember the kind of story of them trying to shoot.
I want to say it's Simon Tolstoy something. I can't remember his name. I didn't write it down. And at this point, a bidding war started to kind of develop between EMI, who was one of the bigger UK record labels with great distribution, and the Charisma label, which was very much a prog label. And I believe Genesis was an early signing of Charisma early on. Mm-hmm. So what ended up happening is 1982, the guys decide, except for Fish, they decide that Diz is not quite cutting it as a bass player. He's a little too flowery, a little too not the style that they want as a bass player. And they go out and they nick a guy named Pete Trewavas from a band, I believe, called the Metros, I believe. And I didn't write that down.
They were in the Metros, that's correct.
The Metros, okay, that's what I thought.
One interesting point with that firing, too, was there's two different stories about it. So Fish basically was very adamant about firing right before a gig. So basically, Fish is the closest friend to Diz. He goes to Fish and just like, "Hey man, you're out of the band, but we're about to play in 15 minutes." And then Diz is just, really pissed off, and then basically just doesn't play the gig. And it's
And he
like,
was his
yeah,
roommate. He was
yep.
him and Mark
So
Kelly's
he came
roommate.
back to the room at the end of the night, and it was
Right.
just the most awkward thing ever.
I'd imagine that would be very,
Yeah.
very, very tough, especially when you're in your 20s and you're as the bass player, you're like, man, we're right on the cusp. Things are starting to happen. The chemistry in the band's really good, and you get fired because you're the weak link in the band.
But that's a pattern with Marillion.
Yeah, it was very early on.
Well, and I think that's that's one of the reasons they're successful. And I don't think that they're like ruthless personalities, but I almost see it like corporate acquisition. The smaller company gets eaten up, and then eventually it gets to the big company. And what they did was, I mean, the two people who started the band were out right after the first album with Mick,
Well,
but even way before that.
The first guy was out way before that
I
even
know.
happened, and then Mick ends up out at the end of the first album. So we'll get to him later because he does factor in pretty prominently in the first album. Let's see what else here. We've got 1982, big moment for them. They get pegged to play the Reading Festival with other luminary prog bands, namely one really big one, Jethro Tull. Forgot them. We should have put them in the OGs right there.
Definitely.
Although you could argue that Jethro Tull is a little more rock than prog, but they're kind of a good mixture of both.
Yeah, they're in that family, and they crossed over to America really well.
Absolutely. At that point in time, they're being courted. They actually have a professional manager by then, and they bring they end up. Charisma offers them a deal, but it's not the deal they wanted. They wanted an album deal. Charisma offers to do 2 singles and then see where they go. So they told Charisma, nah, we want an album deal. Not going to cut it. EMI swoops in and says, we'll sign you. But they end up doing publishing through Charisma, and they have the album deal and distribution through EMI, which was pretty brilliant, actually, even though the contract wasn't great. EMI sends them into studio to do demos for them called the Manchester Square Studio Demos. And at that point, they create what's known now as an EP, and I do not have it, but they went in to do a single, and they did 3 tracks. They did a song called Market Square Heroes, Grendel, which is a 19-minute song, by the way, and a song called 3 Boats Down from the Candy as the B-side to the single. So there was a 7-inch single, which had Market Square and 3 Boats, and the 12-inch had Grendel on the B-side. And what people need to understand, and, I'll show something quick here just so you get it. Back in the 80s, it was a very popular thing for bands to do 12-inch singles. And let me see. So this is the single for Assassing, and that's where the artwork, by the way, for Lee and I came from Rick. This is the 12-inch single for Assassing. It's a single off of the second album, so we'll get to it in a minute here. But what you got here is 2 12-inch. It's a 12-inch record album, but 2 singles. Now, sometimes you could get 2 songs on there, but as you can see, there's the one song that's Assassing, which is 7 minutes, and on the other side is how long is charting the single? I think that one is. What do we got there? Cinderella Search is. Well, they don't actually have the time on this side. They only have the other one. This is an original 12-inch single from 1984, by the way, from EMI. So that was a very popular thing to do back in the 80s. Bands like Depeche Mode, Tears for Fears, Joy Division, all those people were putting out 12-inch singles. It was kind of the zeitgeist of the record industry at that time because you had discos and music clubs that they didn't want the whole album. They wanted the singles, and you give them a 12-inch, and sometimes it had an extended mix on it or a remix on it, and that was kind of again, it was the thing of the 80s. It was the thing that the record company did. Plus, it was a way to promote the band and garner more sales for the record album when it came out. Hey, what's up? Yeah, it's too soon. Oh wait, what are we doing? Oh, you fucking bastard! You fucking bastard, Rick. God damn you! You have no idea. I have no voice because of that prick Tannehill. Anyway, fuck that guy. He's probably out of a job this week, bastard. Yes, too soon, Rick. You are Rick, not Rick. Serge, you are correct. All right, so we're gonna get to this first album, but I want to talk a little bit about this EP because I don't have it, but I do have it. I don't have the actual original EP. Where I have it though is on the 1997 remaster of Script. On the back here, they've got the Battle Priest version of Market Square Heroes, which was a remix. They've got Three Boats Down from the Candy and Grendel. So that's where my first what's the word I'm looking for here? My first take on that material came from was I heard those songs before, but I didn't actually own them until I got this CD remaster because back in the 90s and 2000s, to get that single was pretty pricey, and it's still not very cheap. We forgot one big thing, and I want to backtrack for a minute. Lee, tell me how you learned of Marillion because we skipped that thing that I always do. And so tell me all about how you came into them here.
All right, I'll do that, and then you were very comprehensive in the history, but there's a couple of interesting, quotes and little details I can kind of spurse in there too. So how I got into Marillion, college. So I was probably like 20, 21, and I was just going through a really big prog rock phase. And basically what I was doing, as a lot of people do when they're new to a genre or trying to discover it, is they find the best album of like every band. So, you look up a lot of top 100, top 50, whatever lists for prog. And then Marillion, specifically Misplaced Childhood, came up frequently in those lists. And I remember just being really blown away by the artwork, which I learned a lot of details just prepping for this video about Mark Wilkinson and his art style. So I'm happy to share that a little bit later. Yep. But it's very striking. The album cover is very bright. It's got like a child on the front. And it's different. I've never really seen another album cover quite like it. So I naturally listened to it, and starts out pretty strong, but it did entrance me definitely by the end of it. And I just loved, especially at that point in time, bands that can blend pop sensibility with prog, because having been in a band, I know how difficult it really is to create a good pop song. Whereas creating a prog song is, you have to be a certain musical level to be able to write it, but it's not as hard as, it's a lot easier than basically doing something that's actually like legitimately going to get you big and very catchy. So I was blown away by that. And I just remember I went to school in like rural Georgia, basically near Savannah, and just driving around listening to Misplaced Childhood just like over and over again, really loving it. And it was definitely inspiring me personally musically a lot at the time too. And from there, I didn't really listen to the other albums until just a couple of years later. Then the next one was Script, which wasn't as immediate for me, honestly. And it might have just been my frame of mind at the time.
I get that.
But from there, just consistently being really interested in them, and then discovering next Fugazi and then Clutching. And we'll talk about, where they all kind of rank with me personally later. But it really was just discovering prog rock, and they were just one of the bands. Yes, King Crimson and Genesis being the first loves for sure, and by far my favorites at the time. And now I'm more into deeper cuts like Marillion and Gentle Giant. And then I also, just kind of generally found it so fascinating that Marillion was so popular in the UK. And when I look online and I watch videos about Marillion fans, it's usually from the UK perspective. And they offer a different kind of connection with the band, because they are a distinctly very British band.
It's a homegrown product in a lot of ways. And
definitely,
certainly their success in the UK and Europe versus the United States is there's a pretty good contrast. However, they achieved a fair modicum of success in the United States as well. Not to the same level, but they certainly have guys like me who, as you noted, are really old fuckers, right? As you said, more or less. You didn't say it, but that's what
Yeah.
you meant to say. Um,
Fair enough.
so yeah, I am 56 in March, and I discovered this band in that most magical of ways. Didn't hear any of their songs, didn't read about them. I walked into a Sam Goody record store in 1983 as a junior in high school. Yes, kids, 1983 as a junior in high school. And I was thumbing through the record bin. And actually, I was in the cassette bin. And I'm thumbing through. And I see this artwork. And I am absolutely smitten. I am taken by this artwork. I am like, that is the coolest shit I've ever seen. And unfortunately, I don't have the gatefold. This is the Capitol release. I have OGs of everything else, but this is the only one. I never bought it. I never got it when it was in gatefold. So this is the original Capitol American release when it was reissued. But it's still it's not as cool because all the other ones I'm going to show are gatefolds and they're original EMI UK presses. But this is unfortunately not that one of those. And it
Got a
says
couple other cool
83 on
copies.
here, but I honestly don't. I would imagine this is 83, but I don't really remember. It's got the old Capitol, the Capitol. I guess you call that magenta colored centering, and I just was blown away by that artwork. And we're going to talk about that artist in a minute. Um, but I grabbed the cassette. I'm like, I don't know what these guys are. I have no idea who they are, and this is way before the internet, kids. And I had no clue what they sounded like. I put it in my cassette player as I'm heading home, and it was literally instantaneous love at first listen. And I'm listening to in 83, I'm listening to stuff like Asia's first album was huge the year
Oh yeah.
before with John Wetton, and I'm listening to Yes songs. I'm listening to ELP's first 3 or 4 albums. I'm listening to Queen. I'm listening to Journey. I'm listening to Def Leppard's first 3 albums, and these are landmark moments for me. But when I put this album in, about the only other thing I could honestly, the only other 2 bands that like struck me so intensely was Rush's Hemispheres, which I got into in '77.
Yeah.
Triumph's Just a Game, which was '77, and Kiss's Kiss Alive in '75. There were other albums in there, and I talked about it in Serge's interview last night, like Aqualung and Led Zeppelin 4. There were other really key moments too, but this album just transported me somewhere. I'll try to explain as we get into that album in a minute. The only thing I wanted to add was that Mark Wilkinson, who is the artist for all of Marillion's first 4 albums, and I think he did some other album artwork for them later. However, he kind of went with Fish when Fish went solo in
His
'88,
loyalty really was with Fish.
and he did most of his work with Fish. However, he is also famous for this album. Hold on one
There's
sec.
a lot.
A couple of albums, but I just got this, so I wanted to show it off.
Yep.
He did the album artwork for Senjutsu, which is a pretty big deal.
Book of
Because
Souls
it's pretty
as well.
fucking cool. So this guy's good. Let's just say that he's real good. But what he really became was he became Marillion's Roger Dean. And if you know anything about Yes, Roger Dean is the artist with the cool, floating islands and trippy looking animals and all the really unique Yes artwork of the first 2 decades or 3 decades of that 2 decades of that band. It was really critically important to you like to see me surf. What? All right, these boys are fucking with me now. I get it. pretty gnarly. Okay. Yeah, we'll do some Foreigner, Brian. You're my man for Foreigner. I want to know what love is. Yeah, that's not good. That's what Tannehill did to my throat, people. What's this? Deep dives get quite hot blood. Oh God, fucking Rick and his puns. Love that guy, but his puns are awful. Anyway, so we are at this single does quite well, and it does well enough that EMI pushes to get the band into Marquee Studios, which is behind the Marquee Club, and we'll get back to your quotes in just a sec here, man. To record their first album, they start recording the album in December '82. I might mention, by the way, that Market Square Heroes, when it was released, the single from the EP, 10/25/82, it reached number 53 in the charts, and that was pretty damn good for a band that nobody really knew of other than just as a live local London band. That was pretty big. So that's why they rushed them into the studio to get their first album recorded. Do you want to add some things to that before we get into script?
Yeah, so some pre-stuff. Jeff was really comprehensive there. I think something that was interesting was back in the Doug Irvine, and Pointer's days, they actually had a audition space or like a rehearsal space right next to Camel. So they would literally listen to Camel and then rehearse. So I thought that was really interesting because it wasn't just the being inspired connection. They literally saw Camel firsthand just by being basically rehearsal mates. And let's see, really you covered a lot of stuff here. Doug left because he thought he had to be a rock star by 25. He literally was like, 2 years off? So I kind of feel bad for the guy.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I just think it was very interesting how they systematically got better musicians and grew that way. And little before you know, basically the whole band's completely different. I just think that's such a fascinating story that you don't hear that often. There's a couple examples of it, which I can't think of off the top of my head, but it's pretty cool. I imagine being in the band and being canned would really suck. And when I was reading all these stories, it just reminded me of like being in a band, like the human element. They're pretty transparent in like any interviews about what it was like back then. Yet even now they have kind of figured out, and by they I mean Fish and Marillion, they figured out a way to coexist peacefully for the most part, at least on the surface. Think of how many rock stars are causing drama nowadays or in the 2000s, where Fish, for the most part, were pretty diplomatic about it.
They were. I mean,
back there and forth, but
Fish was a very driven artist, and he had a vision for this band once he entered it. And Rothery, being the original guy, was, and keep in mind that Rothery, we're not quite to the original OG guy, Mick Pointer, being let go after before.
We're not there yet.
Yeah, we're not there yet. But Rothery was closest to Mick, and that was hard for him to do, just like Fish. It was hard for them to let go of his friend Diz because he was closest to him. But what they kind of had was this vision of where the band had to go and who the correct musicians were for the band, and what was going to accelerate them to their end game. And the end game was to get a recording contract, to be professional musicians that were making a living playing music when you could make a living playing music back then.
Right.
And I mean, by that I mean you album selling netted you profits and netted you tours, opening slots, and then as you moved up the ladder, you got headlining slots, and that's when the real money came in through merchandising and all that stuff. But those days are gone now because hardly anybody sells albums unless you're Metallica or those few gigantic, Lady Gaga and stuff like that.
Right.
The album now is simply a mechanism to get you out on tour, where tickets are much more expensive than they used to be. In 1980, when I saw Rush, the ticket was $5. The last time I saw Rush, it was $160 in 2015. So from 80 to 2015.
And that's not just inflation. That's a business decision.
That's a business decision, exactly. Yeah. Because the bands are, if you sell 100,000 now, you're right in the top 3 of Billboard. Whereas back in the day, you had to sell them, 500,000,
Right.
700,000, a million, and it's a whole different paradigm and a whole different dynamic to the music industry. So let me hit a few quickies here.
Sure.
Hey Phil, what's up, Phil, bud? Um, Good to see you, man. I appreciate you jumping in. Serge makes a great point. Dave McKean for Frontline Assembly, very integral to their work and their art as an artist.
Absolutely.
Obviously, Thorgerson is probably right there with Roger Dean as maybe the two flagship bearers of artwork. Because they're you you can't think about one without the other in a lot of ways. What else do we have here? We've got oh, sorry, hold on.
Yeah, pre all these singles, if I can, about Mark Wilkinson, he was doing a lot of just commercial work, like Business Weekly and
Yeah, he
doing these
was.
airbrush illustrations,
Yep.
basically. And he was apparently at a bar, and that's when he overheard potential to basically work with a band like Marillion. Some of the details were a little vague there, but essentially, when Fish saw the artwork, he knew that he could work with this guy and then come up with this gesture vision. And they just have come up with such a good partnership over the years. And I really think it's cool how he used the airbrush for so long, and then eventually evolved to digital, Senjutsu, Book of Souls, some of Judas Priest artwork.
Well,
But
that probably really speaks to you as an artist. To me, I just love his artwork. I got to meet him up.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, in 10, 12 years ago, last time Fish was here, he was at Nearfest. Well, no, shit, that might even been longer ago.
Man, that
And
would
I
have been
showed him
cool.
my tattoo. I'd just gotten it, and he goes, his wife was with him, and he goes, that's the face. It's his wife's face right here. And
Oh,
you can tell.
really?
When you
Yeah.
see her,
He used a lot of reference from
she
people
was
he
the
knew.
model. Yeah. Really cool guy, really nice guy,
I imagine.
incredible artist. And, like Serge said, there are certain artists that are integral to the work that they're almost as important. Derek Riggs and the early Iron Maiden work. You can't separate them because they're just as important in a lot of ways. The presentation of artwork back in the 70s and 80s and 60s, late 60s, 70s, the album art was just as important in a lot of ways as the music and the lyrics.
Let's
They
love
were
it.
a total package, and what's really nice is to see that coming back now with the reemergence of vinyl. You have a lot of bands that are really, they're not doing the fucking uh, Photoshop stuff, and they're doing real fine art with a lot of their pieces if they have the budget to do it. And Marillion is one of those bands that I'd say in the top 5 bands, if you know music really well, you're gonna say Maiden. Uh, um, Rush was Hugh Simon, and Hugh Simon didn't do like art. He did more. Well, he did. He did a lot of art too, but it was a little bit done a little bit differently depending on which album you were looking at.
Yeah.
And Hugh
Wasn't
Simon's
as
one of my
singing
favorites too.
to it. Yeah.
Does a lot of great work, but you had Floyd. Those were the bands, the flagship bears, and Marillion was really smart about that. They found a guy that worked incredibly well with them, and I think he was very important to their success
Oh,
because
yeah.
I will tell you right now, they may not have gotten a fan out of me without me seeing that artwork and going, that fucking artwork rules. I love it,
And even to this day, you want to buy the singles now, even though you got the damn tracks already. It's just so cool
It's so
seeing them
cool.
all together. Like
And
your single collection, I am legit jealous of. And a lot of it is because of the artwork, because I can find the track
absolutely.
anywhere, man.
That's why I never got rid of those. When I got
Yeah.
rid of a lot of my albums back in the early 90s, when I switched to CD, yes, dumb me that I did that. But the Marillion stuff, other than that script picture disc, I could not part with it because it meant so much to me and I loved it so much that I was like, yeah, I'm not getting rid of these. I even, unless somebody walked up to me and say, hey man, I'll give you like 10 grand. I just wasn't going to do that. So let's
You got a
talk
good
quick
collection.
about they send Marillion into Marquee Studios, which is in the back of the Marquee Club. It's a separate building, but they have running electrical and sound equipment through the walls, and they and get a guy named. They were originally going to use a guy named David Hitchcock who did the singles, but he had some issues. I didn't quite find out what his deal was, but they ended up bringing in a fairly notable producer named Nick Tauber and his engineer called Simon Hanhart. And at that point, they started recording script for A Jester's Tear, which I showed you, but I'll show you again.
Well, you have a few copies. Might as well show.
What's that?
You have a few copies. Show.
Yes, I do. I have. I have 4 copies of this album. The original one is this one. It's the Capitol 1983 issue, and you can tell by looking at the.
Yeah, I think I have the same one.
Yeah, that's
Wait,
the OG.
That's different font. So
and the cool thing about it is that inside the EMI gatefold, which I do not have of this one, and it's not a gatefold. The Capitol American release is just a single sleeve, not a gatefold. It has the inside artwork with the skeleton and the running tears. These are tears, but they almost look like metallic raindrops. And there you can see the old. I love seeing these. The old explanation of DDD, ADD, and AAD, which is digital tape recorder used during session for recording, mixing, and editing. And that's kind of the old guy in me there. Kind of thinks that's pretty cool. And this was analog, and digital. That's how this ended up for mastering at the end. So that's the Capitol issue. Then the 1997 made in the UK double disc version, which is remastered and then has cool artwork on the actual CDs. This one, unfortunately, when I had my storage facility, before I got my CD collection out of there, we had a weird freak snowstorm that put down about 14 inches of snow, and 2 days later it was like 80 degrees. It was very bizarre. It was like in late April, almost into May, or actually it was in May. And when it melted, my storage unit just happened to be in the one area that all of the water ran down into, and it hit a couple of boxes of my CDs, and it ruined a lot of my Marillion CDs. This one was up high enough that I still can open the multi-page killer background story behind the script for A Jester's Tear with all the additional artwork and lyrics and all that kind of stuff. So this one's okay, but starting with Misplaced Childhood, I'll show you, it ruined all the inserts on these remastered 97 remasters, and I can't open the booklets, which was a fucking bummer. The music's fine, the CDs are fine, but it ruined the artwork books. So this one came out in EMI, so it's English, made in the UK. It's a double disc set. On it is the original album remastered, the EP, the Market Square Heroes EP with Three Boats Down the Canyon and Grendel, the 19-minute song about the Beowulf.
It's a monster, isn't it?
The Beowulf monster, correct. And then there's the Manchester Square demos of Chelsea Monday, He Knows You Know, charting the single Market Square Heroes alternative version. So there's some cool little rarities in there that you don't get with the original version. Then I also have this. I do not have any of the singles. I don't have the He Knows You Know, and I don't have. Oh, I do have Garden Party. Hold on. So this is the Capitol one that I showed you, single sleeve, and I do have Garden Party. Why did I put that in there? Okay, here's Garden Party, and you'll see there's the price on this 12-inch single. Can you see it? $4.97. This is the Great Cucumber Massacre, it's called. Again, this is Mark Wilkinson, by the way. He used himself and the Mirror to do that artwork. This has Garden Party, the full version, and it has charting the single, recorded live at the Hammersmith Odeon, April 83, and a song called Margaret, which is a cover, recorded April 83 as well. So that's the one single that they put out from that album, and I do have that one. I forgot I had that. So that's all that stuff. And then the last version I'm going to show is the 40th anniversary edition that remaster 5 CD set. Well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 CDs and 1 Blu-ray. So it's 5 discs. It's comes in these cool books like the Jethro Tull remasters. And I'll let you show some of yours off then, okay, Lee?
Yeah,
Um,
some repeats, but yeah. And I will say, if anybody hasn't bought this and you're a Marillion fan, I would jump on it because any of these that have sold out, it's
yeah.
not just value, like it's an amazing copy.
Oh, they're
Uh,
amazing. They're
yeah,
stunning what they did with these. The Blu-ray's incredible. There's a
yeah,
documentary on it. There is the remastered 2020 remix. There is the 2020 remix of the Market Square Heroes EP, which has, again, Market Square Heroes charting the single, Grendel and Three Boats Down with Candy. Then there's Live at the Marquee Club, December 29th, 1982, Part 1 and Part 2. And Part 1 was never released before. I'm sorry, Part 1 was never released before. Disc 4 is Live at the Marquee Club, Part 2, which was again not released before. And on Disc 5, you got Script for a Jester's Tear, Stephen Wilson remix, by the way. And he remixed and remastered and authored all these 5.1 mixes.
yep.
Well, no, wait. Did he do this one or not?
I think he did. I know he did with Fugazi, and I think he
He,
did with the whole series.
he did on Misplaced. Hold on. He did on Misplaced. And he did on. You know what? He did not do Fugazi and this one. He did Misplaced and Clutching at Straws. Avril McIntosh did. Andy Bradfield and Avril McIntosh
Really?
did Fugazi. And I'm trying to find. Maybe you can find it while I finish talking about it. If you look on the notes in the back there, who did this one? Because, man, I thought Steven did this one.
I'm
Hold
doing
on.
a quick search. Definitely Misplaced. I'm seeing that.
I'm kind of bummed I don't know this. I should know this. No, this was Andy Bradfield, not Avril McIntosh for script as well. You'll
Oh,
notice I got some graffiti on mine here, and that is Fish's signature because I got this one, Misplaced Childhood, and Clutching at Straws directly from his website signed. These are, as Lee just said, you can still get Marillion Fugazi, the second album, easily. I got it for $26 the other day, 2 days ago. Was the only one I didn't have it. It's the only one that's not signed. I got that on Amazon. Well worth grabbing, and you should grab them now because they're going to disappear. This one's starting to creep up into the 50, 60, 70, 80 range. Pretty
I
soon it will be gone.
I
You
got it
can't
for
get any of them.
35
What's
on
that?
Amazon. I got it for 35 from Amazon
This
recently.
one?
Yeah. But
Okay.
it
My
might just
bad.
be regional though. Like
My
it
bad.
might be my price down in the south. I don't know.
Okay. This is the
But
this
all
one
the
you'll
other
note
ones,
something.
150 or so.
But
Clutching,
you'll
misplaced, or that
you'll
much.
note something. This is the Parlophone German version, whereas if you get all my other ones have this UK. These are the EMI ones, and these
Yeah,
are
that's the one I have.
they're Parlophone too. Huh? Wait a minute.
But this one has the age sticker, which is interesting.
Oh, I'm wondering about that. That's kind of weird. Anyway, let's talk about script for gestures here. I think we've dug into that, and I'll let you show your stuff for I'll show my shit that you don't show and have for Fugazi, but I'll let you show that one. So what do you want to tell me about script?
I mean, my opinion. So it sounded like it was really immediate for you, and for me, it just wasn't. But I think a lot of it was just my frame of mind when I found it. You know, I just got it for like $5 in a bin, and I knew I liked Marillion. I think it's definitely the most adventurous and like classic prog album. Definitely very similar to Genesis. I think a lot of Genesis fans loved it because it picked up where they liked Genesis and where it left off. You know, when they released Script, we're thinking, singles already came out and everything, but Genesis was on like their Abacab kind of era,
Yes.
and that
Yep.
is way more poppy. And a lot of people cut the line after Duke, and I get why. I mean, I'm one of those people. So out of the four, this actually is my least favorite, but I
Oh,
think it is really good.
sacrilege.
I think it's very good. It's harder to pick out one song and just be like, that one's amazing. And I do feel like Pointer is a really good drummer for a band that isn't what Marillion became. Like, it's not that he's bad, it's just that he does get outshined in the future for sure. And I do think he was the weakest link, but it didn't prevent the album from being impactful. I will say that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very good album. I mean, top 4 for sure. It's just it's like I liked Marillion being Marillion, and I am kind of in that camp where I feel like this was Marillion somewhat being a Genesis-y Marillion. They had their own signature though, but it wasn't as strong.
It definitely points more at Genesis than all the other albums. I don't really think it sounds like Genesis per se, except for the semi-fish vocals that were, I've listened to this band for so long.
The song structures, though, aren't quite as verse chorusy as some of the later stuff. Right. They were able to do the verse, pre-chorus, chorus, like in a very unique way, always, where it didn't feel stale, but it's just hard to grab on one particular song in this album.
I would say this is their most proggy album.
Yeah.
A pure prog, but it really isn't proggy. And I think what's kind of cool about it is that the keyboard sound a little bit more contemporary. And yeah, this album probably sounds the most dated of all the ones that they did, but it's, for me, it's a sentimental favorite. And I will say it's probably my favorite strictly from a sentimental standpoint, a nostalgic standpoint. It's where I came in. I have so many memories attached to going out with my friends and throwing this album in, or going on dates and throwing this album in. And just, man, when I hear that keyboard, the piano, down, so here I am once more in the valley of the broken hearts. I'm not going to, the lyrics are so incredible for that song. I'm losing on the swings, losing on the roundabouts. Da, da, da. Very hackety sounding in the guitars at times. The keyboards are a little more wistful and proggy again. Fish is probably at his most Gabriel-esque on this album.
He's wearing the face paint too. We should add that. He's wearing the face paint
wearing the face paint.
And he definitely has a Peter Gabriel type performance on stage. There's no
yes, he did.
denying that.
Yep. And he wore the paint so that he could kind of overcome his initial stage fright and hide behind that.
Gabriel.
Yeah. Which is understandable. But the more I listen to this band, I don't think they ever sounded that much like Genesis to me. They just don't. And to me, they sound like Marillion. They just do. When you start with the keyboard part to Market Square Heroes, that diddly 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 bam bam. It's just so poppy, but it's still cool. It just has this cool vibe to it that a lot of the other widdly prog bands didn't have of that era. I like IQ and they're pretty cool, but they don't measure up like Marillion did in terms of hooks, pop sensibilities, great musicianship, and their own sound. This is their most derivative sounding album, and yet it sounds like Marillion.
I agree with that. 100%.
Let's hit a couple quick facts. The song He Knows You Know, which was the single, was released on 1/31/83. The album it reached number 35 in the charts, which is pretty good for an unknown band in the British charts we're talking here. March 14th, the album was released. It's very autobiographical from Fisher's perspective, although it's kind of a third-person autobiographical take on relationships and things he was dealing with and things he knew people were dealing with. The song He Knows You Know is about addiction. There's a lot of pretty intense lyrical content in that song. The song Chelsea Monday, he uses the word whore. What else is on there real quick, just so I know?
The Web, Forgotten Sons.
Sons. Garden Party was released. Wait a minute. Yeah, I already showed you that. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have He Knows You Know. Garden Party. What a song. Oh, what a song. The keyboards, which, by the way, the keyboard part, the was from Brian Jelliman. We should give him credit. He wrote that beginning part. this album, man, you know, it starts off with the tour de force that is Script for a Jester's Tear, the title track. What a fucking song. 8 minutes plus. So goddamn good. It's that one particular song for me is just, there are other songs on each album, but that might be my favorite Marillion track. There's something about
Really?
it just, there's so many movements in it in eight
Yeah.
minutes, yet it still is a song you could hear on the radio, and it's just so evocative and so emotional and intense, and there's such a beautiful lyrical melancholy to that song. It's just so beautiful. He knows, you know, the rock song on the album, pretty much.
That's my favorite.
So good. The
Yeah.
Web. Oh, oh man. What I gotta read a couple of lyrics here from that, man. It's so fucking good. Let's see. Here we go. I wanted to read a little bit from He Knows You Know. So it's got light switch, yellow fever, crawling up the bathroom wall, singing psychedelic praises to the depths of a china bowl. You've got venom in your stomach. You've got poison in your head. You should have listened to the priest at the altar of the confession when he offered you the sacred bread. He knows you know. He knows you know. He knows you know. But he's got problems.
And it's the way he says it,
It's the
too.
vitriolic way he attacks the lyrics, man. Fast food, crystal fever, swarming through a fractured mind, chilling needles, freezing emotion. The blind shall lead the blind. You've got venom in your stomach, poison in your head. When your conscience whispered, the vein line stiffened. You were walking with the dead. It's about drug addiction and shooting up, which he didn't do, but he knew people that did, and he knew what lay in store for IV drug use. But the Web, the Rain auditions, the way it starts out, dun, 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 the Rain auditions from my window. Its symphony echoes in my womb.
I will say though, that is such a Genesis-y type of
That
thing
is
of
definitely
like entering right on the song,
Yep.
like right in the lyrics.
My gaze scans the walls of this apartment to rectify the confines of my tomb. I'm the Cyclops in the tenement. I'm the soul without the cause, crying midst my rubber plants, ignoring beckoning doors. Clippings from ancient newspapers lie scattered across the floor, stained by the wine from a shattered glass. Meaningless words, yellowed by time, faded photos, exposing pain, celluloid leeches, bleeding my mind. I love that line. You finished playing hangman. You've cast the fateful dice. Advise me. This shroud will not suffice. This dude was so on another level lyrically. His lyrics take you places, man. It's like it transports you into his world and where he wants you to go. And my favorite lyricist, Dylan's pretty close, and Neil Peart's up there too, but Fish probably is my favorite lyricist.
Yeah, hard to beat.
Chelsea Mundy, brooding, moody song. I'm sorry, Garden Party. You got to hear it. You just got to listen to it. It's so fun and upbeat. That's the upbeat track on the album, the only real upbeat track. Forgotten Sons, epic, grand. Probably my least favorite song on the album, though. Over time, it's the one I've least gotten into. We talked about Grendel. That's the 19-minute song. And now I don't think it aged as well when it came out. I loved it.
Well, now Grendel isn't on the original track list, right?
What's that?
Grendel isn't on the original track list, right?
No, that was on the EP.
Yeah.
Market Square Heroes that was the single that they put out. Did not make the did not go on the album. That's just a great fucking rock song, man. It's a great rock prog song. And you got Three Boats Down from the Candy. Really eerie tune, man. Really eerie tune. I love that song. I'm shocked that they didn't actually go on there. But again, the record company was doing pre-album release stuff to get you interested in the band.
Yeah.
So anything more you want to say about Script?
I mean, you covered it a lot. Like, and even though it's kind of in fourth place out of these four albums, it's still amazing. And I could understand why somebody would think that it's the best one. And somebody could easily make a good case for it. He Knows You Know, for me, is the standout track for sure. I mean, because I can just hear the vocal line. That's the thing. And I feel like they tapped into that even better as they went on. Really amazing debut. And I listened to all these albums at least 3 times this week. Like, I'm
better
not gonna
than
lie.
me.
After today, I'm done with Marillion for a minute, but it was very enjoyable. Um, and yeah, I mean, amazing album. I think that's very cool that your first album with them was Script. Like, I think that's a really cool experience that I didn't have.
I feel lucky. I feel pretty lucky. I didn't know about him before then. I didn't know about him on the EP, but I knew about the EP very quickly after I got the first single because they were in Kerrang a lot, a British
Yeah,
rock magazine of that era. And when this album came out, they were pretty big. They were pretty big deal because this album sold 120,000 initially, which was quite a lot for an almost unknown, unheralded band. And then it went to number 7 in the British charts, and it led to a lot of major sold out major Euro touring, which they did this huge tour. And then we get to the end of that tour, and they decide, everyone decides except Steve Rothery, that Mick has to go. It was primarily Fish. Fish and him were at loggerheads. I never did really get the total picture of why they. Maybe it was that he was trying to be too busy and just wasn't able to play the
yeah.
material.
I mean, it was musically related. At least that's what they say now. But the thing is, though, if anybody, and we're about to get into this, but if anybody really comes across as really assertive personality, it's not going to work in that band because Fish is that.
Fish is the
Like,
dominant personality, correct?
right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Pete, Steve, and Mark's probably the most dominant other than Fish at that time.
Yeah.
And I think there was Mick being the OG guy, the OG guy.
Yeah.
Um, was I think he was partying a lot. I think that was part of the deal too. And I think that there was just some conflict between him and Fish, and Fish was so laser focused on getting this band to the upper levels.
Right.
It wasn't enough to get an album out. It was now, and to open for bands. It was now big bands on a major tour. It was now to be the headliner, and I think there was some issues there. So they fire him, which was difficult for Steve Rothery because Steve was the next OG in line, and he was pretty close to Mick, and he kind of struggled with it. And when you watch the making of Script, they have Mick on there, which is pretty cool, and he
Yeah.
adds a lot of commentary, and you can tell it really hurt him. And he left music and didn't do anything for 10 years after that, music related, which is tough.
He
So
went to Arena, right? The band Arena.
no, that was Jonathan Mover.
Oh, okay. Oh, we're about to get it. Sorry, I was
Yeah.
getting confused.
Jonathan
Now,
Mover's later down the road. Well, pretty close, but
yeah.
so with that said, they they now need a drummer. They've done really well with this first album, and there's a lot of expectations by EMI. This is now a band that's on the rise. It's a flagship band for them, and they want to promote and push this band. So they want to get them back in the studio quickly, and they start working on Fugazi. They did not have much material at all written, and they started to write a lot of material in the studio. EMI dumps a lot of money into this album and sets them up at the Manor, which was Richard Branson of Virgin fame, Virgin Records, Virgin Air, his recording studio, state of the art studio in England at that time. And they start working on Fugazi, which, by the way, is an American uh,
It's a
military
term.
term for
Yeah.
all fucked up.
Yeah.
And let's see.
And they rehearsed and kind of wrote the material too. It's somewhat of like it was like a rehearsal studios in South Wales. And they kind of described it like a hippie commune. Like it was kind of a little weird, if I remember right. Yeah. But yeah.
But you're right. They're rehearsing and they're working on material for Fugazi, and they're struggling a little bit because they have to go out on tour a lot, and they have to go on tours and then come back and pick up where they left off. And now they're without a drummer, so they have to start looking at auditions for drummers. And they fortuitously, at first, run into a guy named Andy Ward. And Andy Ward was the drummer for Camel for a while. And they loved Steve Rothery, being a huge Camel fan, loved Andy Ward's drumming, and they felt he was a really lovely guy, British, really fell in line with him, and they got him in, rehearsed him a bit, and they take off for America to do I believe it was their very first U.S. gigs.
Yeah,
Um,
opening right for
yeah,
Rush.
well, they did. Yes, they're doing the summer of '82. They're doing support for Todd Rundgren.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if
Utopia.
it's Utopia or just Todd
It was
Rundgren.
Utopia. I remember reading that.
Okay. Um, the band felt that they made a huge upgrade with Andy because he was just a really, really killer progressive rock drummer, and they take off for the U.S. to do these dates. And I'm not, I don't have all this memorized. I made notes too, man. I'm way too old and way too dumb for that. Um, it quickly became apparent on this U.S. tour that Andy Ward had some serious problems. It turns out he was bipolar, and he also had a pretty bad drinking problem. And they didn't realize, like, they all drank, and Fish is pretty notorious for drinking quite a bit,
Oh yeah.
but he's a big fucking dude, so he can put away a lot. But Andy Ward apparently was drinking like excessively. He was having issues being away from his girlfriend, and they
Yeah.
weren't even out that long. It was like 3 weeks. I think the tour was 5 weeks, but they were out about 3 weeks. And by the time they got to New York City, he was doing bizarre things like leaving the drums during moments where there was a
In the
keyboard
song. Yeah.
solo and they turn around and he was gone. They also have to
Hotel incident.
the motel incident with him trying to get was drunk and he put change in a cigarette thing and apparently somebody didn't load the cigarette machine right and all these cigarettes came out and he started giving them out to everybody as free cigarettes and it was a pretty nice motel, I believe, the Hilton, I believe, and
Yeah.
that the motel people didn't management did not appreciate that. um, he had also attempted to take his life earlier in Camel, and so what they ended up doing was they got to the New York gig. It was pretty rough. They ended up sending him home, taking him to the airport and sending him home. At that time, they were also offered a 5 night opening slot for the greatest band in the world,
Hmm.
Rush, at Radio City Music Hall in September of '83. That was 80. Yeah, that was 82, 83. And in order to do this, they needed to get a quick fill-in drummer. So they brought a guy named John Martyr from a band called Mr. Big. Not the same Mr. Big in the U.S., I don't believe. I think
What a
it's a
coincidence.
UK Mr. Big, and they were actually pretty big in the UK. I've
Yeah.
never heard of him.
Well, he was like a session player, right?
He was,
As
but he
well.
was also in that band Mr. Big.
Yeah.
And unless I'm missing something and didn't make the connection, I'm 99% sure it's not the same Mr. Big. Um, because I looked at it, I'm like, that's not Eric Martin and Paul Gilbert and
I
Pat
think you're
Torpey
right.
and
At least I didn't read that.
yeah,
So
I don't think it was. They took him in and he did the shows, but he was very aggro and
condescending
he
too.
also very condescending because he was older than those guys and he knew the music industry and he kept saying without Fish this band kind of blows and
Yeah.
they're going nowhere. And so the rest of the band was like, this isn't the guy, and even Fish didn't like him. Um,
Nobody liked him.
so they pulled in Jonathan Mover, an American from Boston. He flew over to do audition when they went back to the UK. They knew this guy was a good drummer, but he turned out to be an American asshole. Imagine that. And they just didn't like his sensibility with all them being UK and
Yeah.
having English sensibilities and state and senses of humor. And he was a little dry for them and was almost like a clinician and didn't like he'd be like, no, 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 that part's in 24/8. You're doing it 26/7. He was like correcting them as they were playing, and all the guys really
He's talking
got
about drums too much. It was
what's that?
almost
Oh
like
yeah, and
he just
he was
didn't fit the
constantly
vibe.
he was constantly in musician mode and couldn't decompress from
Yeah.
being a musician too much. And um, let's see. At first, he did pretty well, but they just didn't hit it off, and they felt he was a bit arrogant.
Fish
Eventually,
was really the one who wanted him gone. The other guys were overall fine with him.
they said he was a great musician, but
Yeah.
yeah, Fish again. Fish is the dominant personality. If you
Yeah.
don't mesh with Fish, you're probably going to have a tough time sticking in the band. So enter one Ian Mosley, who got along swimmingly with Fish and was a killer drummer in Steve Hackett's band and some other bands. And he is a killer drummer. He's really, really good.
Oh yeah.
Um, they brought
Huge
him in.
step
He
up.
fit in. He was the perfect combination of technicality and an easygoing vibe and got along great with Fish. Fugazi's recorded at multiple studios after they wear their welcome out at the Manor. They actually overexceeded budget excessively. The
Hmm.
album Script for Jester's Tear cost about 70,000 pounds British sterling. Fugazi in the end cost 120,000 pounds
Yep.
sterling. They ended up finishing up several different studios, finally mixing it. And before they went out on tour, before the album was released, they let me get my notes here. Nick Tauber's on board again to
Yep. And
Nick Tauber
Simon.
and Simon Ann are back again. Before heading out on a major European tour, they were called to. Damn it! I had the studio here, but I guess it doesn't matter. The final mixes at a studio before they went out on tour, a studio in London, and the band did not like the mixes. They were not happy with the way it sounded, and they said, "We want to make these changes." And EMI said, "Nope. That's how it's going out. It's already in production. You can't stop it now." The band was really upset about that and really pissed off. The album is a much darker album. It was plagued with a lot of recording problems, and Nick Tauber had a cocaine addiction that was really, really wearing on him because he was under a lot of pressure to deliver a better album than Script, and he felt the pressure. And essentially, it was twice as expensive as Script and sold less than Script. So, you want to show your versions of the albums and talk about the album?
Yeah, and I guess right before that, just a couple details too. So you were
Sure.
right about pretty much everything there. But yeah, they were 50,000 quid, basically down because they basically had that deficit. Cost 120, only made 70, just like Script, which is what I had down here. And you're right on with the drummers in terms of why they got out, and Ian Mosley, just in terms of his playing, it reminds me of Jeff Porcaro a lot.
Oh,
from
yeah.
Toto,
Yep.
where it's all the subtle ghost notes and the playing is just so smooth, and it just supplements the song so well.
That's a great way of putting it. He's a smooth player, man.
Yeah, amazing player, and he's
And
definitely
really nice guy, by the way.
Yeah, that's awesome that you got to meet him. I'm trying to think of some other interesting.
Did you show your version? Show your version, please. The book version.
Yeah. Do you have this one?
Yeah, just got it.
Yeah, really cool.
Why don't you read off what's on there real quick?
Sure. So starts with Assassing, Punch and Judy.
Well, no, just tell
the discs.
Yeah, what's on the discs themselves, not the track listing, because we're gonna go through track by track.
Got it. Yeah. So disc 2 is live at the Spectrum, Montreal, Canada. Then disc 3 is
part 2.
Yeah, part 2 of the same show. Then we got the disc 4 as the Blu-ray, has documentary, as well as some of the music videos, I believe, some live footage. There's a lot on this Blu-ray.
Well, it's got that Live Montreal that is on the audio. It's got the Live Montreal video footage, and it's an awesome concert. I watched about half of it last night or the night before, and I'd never seen it, and it's so good. Really good. Plus, there's the extra audio on there, which we'll talk a little bit about. There's the alternate mix of Assassing. There's Three Boats Down from the Candy, which is, I'm not sure what that version is, to be honest with you. There's the extended mix of Cinderella Search, which was a single, a B-side for Assassing. They've got Punch and Judy, the demo, She Chameleon, the demo, Emerald Lies, the demo, and Incubus. And then, as you said, the documentary, the performance has just begun. There's also the audio 5.1 version of Fugazi, which was mixed not by Stephen Wilson, but by Simon Hanhurt and Andy Bradfield. And then you've got all the videos. You got the Assassing promo video, the story of the songs track by track from the album. You got the Fugazi live concert and that's fantastic too, by the way, which is 49 minutes. Dude, I didn't watch the live from Montreal. I watched the one from the Swiss television thing. Did you watch that yet?
The thing on here?
Yeah, the one from the Fugazi live concert.
No, I didn't.
Dude, you got to watch it. It is so fucking good, dude.
Yeah, I was watching the live from Lorelei earlier this week just because I was at the gym and it was more convenient. But I spent more time with the Script DVD at this point. Because these are recent acquisitions. A lot,
Okay, yeah,
these are
you're
prep for the stream. But I
well.
had all the original copies.
This one's
East West.
original. This one's very recent for me, only 2 days. I
Yeah.
didn't, but I spent a lot of time with this one because it's the one I didn't have of the 3 box sets, and I was like, damn, this is killer, man. And it should be noted that the 2021 remix of this album is quite a bit different from the original mix.
Quite a bit
That has to
better,
be noted. Oh
I
my
think.
god, the ending of Fugazi is
Yeah.
very different from the album version. It's like a different mix of the whole album, and I
Yeah.
gotta say, I like it better. And the reason they remixed it for this 40th anniversary edition is one reason. They didn't like the original mix
Yep.
from
It was Rush.
1984, so they remixed. Hold on here. They remixed the whole album in 2021, and it's fucking amazing. It is. I heard it with new ears, and I was like, especially the song Fugazi, which is probably the best song on the album. It is just absolutely mind blowing. The end of it. I did not listen to the live Montreal set, and I didn't watch the Montreal set. Should be noted that there's backstage interviews at the Fugazi live and the Swiss television thing. The documentary is fantastic. It's an hour and it's about 72 minutes. The one on Script is about an hour and a half long, I believe.
Yeah, I watched that one.
Yeah, that was
really
very, very good. Again, this is the last one they put out. For some reason, they actually started with Misplaced Childhood. Then when they did Clutching, then they did Script, then they did this one. I'm not sure why they didn't go in order. I don't know if that had something to do with
just demand, probably.
I mean, guess. Well, that probably makes
most.
sense. That probably makes sense. Get people excited for the Misplaced Childhood. They'll get all the other ones. But these things, unfortunately, if you really want Misplaced Childhood or Clutching, which are the third and fourth album, which we're going to get to here shortly, you're going to have to pay pretty good money for those.
That's what
at least 100, 125 for Clutching, and probably maybe more for Misplaced. I've seen that one going for $300 and $350, especially if it's signed. So your
Marillion fans don't sell shit.
They don't.
Hold
You're
on
right.
to it. So that's why.
You're right. They don't.
Oh man.
But this one is on Amazon for $28, I believe. Well, it was 31, and I had a $5 coupon, so it was 31.
Yeah, it was 31 for me.
But 4 discs
worth it
at $31, man, it's $7.50 a piece, and it's loaded. I don't know if you showed the back.
On the book too. I mean,
you got these great books.
Thing, man.
Yeah, if you look, you can see all that material on these things, man. It's just absolutely fucking incredible.
Yeah,
and hopefully you can see that and don't have too much glare.
And we're not getting any cut out of promoting this. I mean, legit, this thing's just awesome.
Yeah, it is. So real quick on that, before we jump to the next one, I'm going to flex a little bit. I'm going to show you my OG copy from 1984. This is the original EMI European copy. You can see it over here, and it is because of the cool big giant print on the album. And now this one, the water damaged a little bit of the print on here, I think, although it may have been a misprint like that, like where you can see where the F is missing. Can you see that?
Yeah.
I was thinking the water did that, but now I'm not so sure that it did. It may have just been that way. So that's the OG, and here you can see the water damage from my just painful to see that, man. Painful. I really don't know if I don't think there's a way to ever, unless you steam it, maybe that might work, but I didn't try it.
That looks beyond.
Oh, here it is. There's the print from the CD. You see it right there. You see that?
Oh, yes. Now
so it lifted off of there because the water, it sagged and ripped that off. But
real quick, do you mind showing your OG copy of Script real quick and then opening up to the CD? I just saw
the CD different. Or what?
Your Script CD looks different than my Script CD, and they should be the same copy, which I thought.
Well, mine is Capital. Yours might be EMI. Mine's the American version.
Oh yeah, mine's EMI. Okay.
Yeah, that's why.
Because I saw that the logo is different.
Yeah, I'll look at yours in a minute. Now this is the '97 remaster. They did all their first 7 or 8 albums as 97 remasters. Again, made in England over here.
Oh yeah.
This one was one that didn't get damaged, thankfully. So it's got the crazy deep artwork and all the stories and the original black and white artwork. And yeah, it's just there's the single that I do not own for
Yeah.
He Knows You Know. And that's where the artwork he used that. I took it in. I took that picture in. I didn't have the album, but I took a photo of it off the internet. I printed it off, and that's what he used for my tattoo.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. And let's see. Here's
Mark Wilkinson was mentioning in that sketch. He's like, I didn't like the angle of how it
yeah.
originally was with the
Yep.
black and white, and yeah, I do agree when he turned it a little bit, it just like pops out of the page more, has that foreshortening. So yeah, really cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. And here's again print work on the CDs that they started doing with more contemporary CDs. So that's the other version I have of it, and then the final version would be the OG '84 album, which it was.
Oh, cool.
Is
Is
this
that
one
the
on the
gatefold?
price? This one is gatefold. There's the price. Price was, you see that, $9.97
Wow.
in 1984. There's the gatefold, beautiful. This one's in damn near pristine shape, and you can see the gatefold, and then the original EMI label. And this one has a poly bag, unlike the Capital one, which was cheaper. So it has a real poly bag. And there's the original EMI. Let's see if I can get this without touching it. EMI label that was on all the original. This kind of cream color with black script.
Nice.
The UK versions had the poly bag. The US version was like a clear bag. So those either go to my kids when I'm gone, or maybe they even go in my casket. I don't know. The 12-inch singles from this, Assassing, as we showed you earlier, and Cinderella Search, which was a 12-inch single. Also, we have Punch, Punch, Punch. It's Judy. Punch, Punch, Punch.
You
There's
can't
the
help
Punch
but do
Judy
that.
single.
Yeah.
Market Square Heroes on the back, live.
That's an interesting back there.
And 3 Boats Down from the Candy. And that's Mark's face again as a young man. This is a weird one. He says the legs are really weird, and they are if you look at them.
Yeah.
They look very strange.
Well, they're off for sure.
$4.97 for that. $4.97. And
I saw some vintage patches with that face. Like
no kidding.
Yeah, but it was just like a really cheap print. I actually got like a original script patch, and I put it on my battle vest.
Did you really?
Yeah.
That's fucking killer, dude. What do you got? Anything you want to show me real quick? You said you want to show me your script.
Oh,
Let me see that. Let me see it.
It has the logo, whereas yours was just like a font.
That's OG. Yep, yeah. That's OG right there. Let me see the back of it real quick.
It's got the single artworks, like in the painting.
You got that in a cutout bin or in a?
Yeah, it was just a used bin.
Lucky dude. I'd like to have one of those. I'll have to come to your house and steal that.
I got a 98 remaster of Fugazi, which is pretty close to as good as the 2021. It is definitely a lot better than the original.
Oh, I showed you the wrong. I showed you the wrong. I showed you script again. This is the Fugazi double 97 disc.
Wait, we have the same thing then. Yeah.
And again, you can see this one's made in Germany actually. And this one has the album 97 remaster and then Cinderella Search 12-inch version, which is on the Assassing single. It's got the alternate mix of Assassing, 3 Boats Down from the Candy, and that's got Punch and Judy, She Chameleon, Emerald Eyes, and Incubus. A lot of that stuff's on the 5.1 version, but this one also managed to escape the water damage, so it's got all the artwork in it and the multi-page stuff. A lot of this is exclusive to this. It's not in the remaster book version that just came out. It's a cool pick there. So good stuff there. And yes, I have probably about 3 versions of everything, except Clutching. I don't have 3 versions out. I have actually. Well, I do. I have 3. So I actually have 4 versions of most stuff. Let's quick tap out the where did my notes go? What the fuck? Hey, where did I put them? Are you kidding? That's very weird.
Sitting on them.
How about that? Oh, they were in my albums here. Hang on. Oh, here we go. Couple quick things to note. The album did not sell as well. It sold about half as many, 60 to 80,000 of the Fugazis sold initially. And let's see.
You talking facts here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
with regards to sales of Fugazi. And the record company was very disappointed,
Yeah.
and they started to chatter about potentially being dropped by the label.
Well, that's why
What they did
Reel
was,
to
though, the
Reel.
band and the manager decided to put out a live album from some of the appearances that they did to support Fugazi to raise cash and keep and help with the relevance of that album. So another OG,
Oh, Reel to Reel, yeah.
Reel to Reel, was put out in November of 1984, I believe. Hang on, let me double check. Reel to Reel. This was aided. It aided in cash flow, and they had needed to sell 400,000 copies of Fugazi, and they only ended up selling like about 200 all told in the first year there. Let's see.
It says here, UK chart, it became gold, but it didn't become gold. And I'm talking Fugazi here until 1985.
Yeah, it was a year later. So
Yeah.
500,000 copies, but it took almost 2 years for it to achieve that. Now, this is the back of the album, which is pretty cool. And this is a really good live album. It's got Assassing, Incubus, Cinderella Search, Forgotten Sons, Garden Party, Market Square Heroes. It was recorded at Spectrum Montreal, so it's from that Montreal show, and also at Leicester de Montfort Hall in England in March and June of 1984. Produced by Simon Hanhart and recorded and mixed at Recording Marquee Studios. And this one's interesting because it actually has a colored sleeve now, which is the only one I know of them that has one, I think. There's no other notes on it. It's just pictures. This one, I bought this again, OG. This was $8.97. I bought that in late 84, early 85 when I saw it, because at that point in time, Marillion was probably my favorite band, even over Rush, to be honest with you. I was crazy about them at that point in time. So let's see. Let me get out of here. And so at that point, Fugazi does not live up to expectations of the recording of EMI. And they're talking about, there's whispers that this next album better be big. It better have big singles on it. And the band decides, this could be our last album. And it reminded me of Rush going into the studio after Caress of Steel saying, okay, they want us to write hit singles. You know what? We're going to do a whole concept album, a whole side of a concept album. And fuck them. If we're done, we're done. But we're going out on our terms artistically. And that's pretty much what Marillion decided to do. They decided to do a concept album. Let's do what we want. In case we're going out and we're going to be dropped, let's do what we want. Go ahead. What you got?
I was just thinking, do you want to talk kind of about before we move on? So we got the history of Fugazi. Do you want to talk quickly about your opinion of the album, kind of how it stacks up?
Oh my God, I didn't do it. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Real quick. I love this album. It's dark. It's moody. It's brooding. Assassing. What a cool track, man. It starts off with this creepy, dark synth that, is like this. It almost sounds like you're walking into an opium den and you've got and then it starts with this ethnic Arabic sort of looping drum track, and it's and Fish is wah wah, and he's doing this,
and
like,
then when
static.
he's live, he's like doing the jump,
and Ian's just playing so in the pocket, so good. And then the crushing, and it's like, and Rothery comes in with this just unique sound. And I'll say it now. While Fish was the domineering personality, the um, the secret weapon in Marillion is Steve Rothery's guitar.
Oh yeah.
This guy is so unbelievably underrated. He is such an understated guitarist that plays the perfect chords, the perfect notes, the most amazing solos from a phrasing standpoint.
Yep.
He and his sound is so inimitable. You just, I hear that sound and I know it's Steve Rothery from a million miles away
Oh
because
yeah.
no one else sounds like him, man. He harnessed a type of, with his effects units and the lexicon digital delay and the chorus and the various different things that he used layered wise, layering guitar parts. Steve Rothery is the secret weapon of Marillion. No matter how much Fish dominated and domineered that early sound, and Mark Kelly was very pronounced too in the way he played keyboards and stuff. And Pete Juavis has a very understated and unique style of playing too.
Good
Steve
harmony
Rothery
singer
is the
too.
fucking man, and it's just that simple.
Yeah.
Punch and Judy was their attempt at a hit single. I love that song. I fucking love it. It's about
Made to
divorce and
29
murdering your
on
spouse,
the
and it's
chart.
like the lyrics are so vitriolic and biting and real. You can just
Yeah.
imagine when you're talking about. Let me read this. I gotta read this stanza because it's so good. Um,
Let's pull out our Bibles. All right.
what's that?
So let's pull out our Bibles.
Yeah, right. So you got washing machine, pinstripe dream, stripped the gloss from a beauty queen, found our nest in the Daily Express, met the vicar in a holy vest, brought up the children church of thee, now I vegetate with a color TV, worst ever thing that ever happened to me, oh for DIVORCE, oh Judy. Whatever happened to pillow fights? Whatever happened to jeans so tight Friday nights? Whatever happened to Lover's Lane? Whatever happened to passion games, Sunday walks in the pouring rain? Curling tongs, megadons. I don't. Magadons is a sedative, by the way. It's
Okay.
a pill in the British. It's like a benzo in British parlance. I got a headache, baby. Don't take so long. Single beds, middle aged dread, losing the war on the wasteland spread. Who left the cap off the toothpaste tube? Who forgot to flush the loo? The loo is a bathroom toilet, by the way. Leave your sweaty socks outside the door. Don't walk across my polished floor. Oh, Judy. Whatever happened to morning smiles, wicked wiles, permissive styles? Whatever happened to twinkling eyes, hard fast drives, compliments on unnatural size? I mean, he's laying it right out there, man. And
Yeah.
finally, the one at the last. I love this, man. Propping up the bar, family car, sweating out a mortgage as a balding clerk. World War III, suburban she, just slip her these pills and I'll be free. Man, those lyrics are so fucking awesome, man.
And they got a
God, I
little
love
humor
that
in
fucking
there
song.
too, you know.
And then next, not my favorite song, but it might be my second favorite song on the album, Jigsaw. It is such a beautiful, beautiful ballad, lilting and sad and melancholic, and it's got Fish's most intense vocal on the chorus. And he says, and you were probably going to add this, but he says he was singing way too high out of his range, and he struggled night after night. They rarely did this one early on because it would roach his voice, but man, we are jigsaw pieces aligned on the perimeter edge, interlocked through a missing piece. We are Renaissance children becalmed beneath a bridge of sighs, forever throwing firebrands at the stonework. We are Siamese children related to the heart, bleeding from the surgery of initial confrontation, holding the word scalpels on trembling lips. The chorus is stand straight, look me in the eye, and say goodbye. Stand straight, we've drifted past the point of reasons why. Yesterday starts tomorrow, tomorrow starts today. I mean, seriously, that is so fucking amazing. And the problem always seems to be we're picking up the pieces on the ricochet. That is brilliant. That is
Yeah.
brilliant lyrical prose right there. And it gets better through the song. Love that song. Emerald Lies is a cool track, kind of a proggy track. Dig it. I love that song. She Chameleon's kind of the odd one out here. It's kind of a dirgy, long developing
Atmosphere
song
song.
that kind
Yeah.
of it's cool, but the weird the weird thing, I like it. I used to love it. I used to love it mainly because in the where's the chorus here? It says, "So was it just a fuck? Was it just a fuck? Just
Oh,
another fuck?"
yeah,
I said, "Loving just for laughs, carnal autograph, lying on a lizard's bed." In other words, comparing a woman to a slimy lizard that is sucking his soul. She Chameleon. It's pretty. It had to been
well, then
autobi
Incubus right after,
and then
about
Incubus,
yeah,
which is probably my third favorite, sometimes second favorite song. It's the most proggy song on the album, actually. It's a brilliant song, one of the band's favorites, and one they always do sometimes pull out.
yeah,
I don't even want to read the lyrics because it's so fucking good. You just need to buy this album and go read them yourself. And then my favorite song, Fugazi. Man, dude. Oh my God. This song is. I'm going to be interested to hear what you say about it, but this song is a fucking epic fucking song from the moment it starts, and it just builds and builds and builds and builds. It's got the most incredible fucking guitar solo on it.
yeah,
Um,
the climax for sure.
Dude, the ending of the song is like so fucking intense, and the way Fish is singing it. Do you realize? Do you realize this world is totally fugazi? And it's just he's so fucking into it. And then the end of it is, where are the prophets? Where are the visionaries? Where are the poets to breach the dawn of the sentimental mercenary? All right, man, it's your turn to go into it. But I'm telling you right now, the song Fugazi is enough reason to go buy this album. You're foolish if you don't. I love this album, man. I mean, I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So, can I ask, where does this stack up in the whole four then for
Go
you?
for it.
No, for you. For you
Oh,
wrapping
where's
up.
it stack up?
Yeah, for you. Yeah.
Whew. I want to wait till the end to give my ranking, okay?
Touche. Yeah.
I want to think about it a little bit.
Yeah, it's not easy.
No.
Uh, so for me, I think this album's quite a step up in a lot of ways, and I'm like, I'm a drummer. That's basically the instrument that I played the best by far. But man, like the Ian Mosley's playing just elevated the band a
Yeah,
ton for
thank you
me.
for adding that. I missed that. And you're right. It was a massive step up.
Yeah, I mean, listen to the beginning of Incubus, like that cool drum fill. Like it's
Oh,
such a cool little groove at the beginning and just kind
yeah.
of floats right in. I
I
love
think,
that track.
Lee, I think you'd agree with me here. Maybe you won't. But I'm sorry, Mick Pointer was a rock drummer. Ian Mosley is a prog rock drummer.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. And
So go
just
ahead.
yeah, excellent. Holistically, the album's just way more punchy. I know it says Punch and Judy, but like it's way more immediate, I think, especially with the newer mix. And the songs can stand alone by themselves, except She Chameleon. To me, you have to listen to Emerald Lies into She Chameleon and Incubus if you're gonna listen to that part of the album, because it's a very much like a bridge song, being She Chameleon. But the beginning, Assassing, Punch and Judy, Jigsaw, I mean, it's cool that this album also starts with their two singles. Assassing made it to 22 on the UK charts, and then Punch and Judy made it to 29. And then Fugazi right there at the end, just an excellent closer. I feel like this album is kind of the understated and underrated one of the bunch of the first four.
I agree fully.
And it's my favorite album artwork. So this actually, not that it really matters so much, but some publication called Gigwise, it's just a Wikipedia fact, but they said this was the 29th best album artwork ever. And
Wow.
I can see why. I mean, another commentary is interesting is, so with this, look at how decrepit and dirty everything is. You know, we got a
Right.
dirty
Yep.
mattress, really sad.
Yep.
So with this, we got success, we got pristine,
Right.
we have 80s technology, we got
Yep.
pretty, and then this is the beginning also of the lyrical motifs really coming into the little details of the songs. We got the chameleon, we got
Yep.
the magpie,
The Magpie.
the addiction, obviously. But I love this album artwork, and I feel like it really fits the vibe of the songs a ton. And yeah, lyrically, step up. I feel
And
like he's getting
again,
more into real territory. Really
again,
relatable.
it's worth mentioning that the art. A lot of people thought that was Fish. I thought it was Fish. It's not. It's Mark Wilkinson.
Mm.
Again, that's his interpretation of using himself. And like you said, there's if you notice too, here's something else to note too. Maybe you saw this or didn't, but if you look, here's the pop star. I'm sorry. Here's the pop star in the posh hotel. The lines of coke, the drug, the syringe over there, the she chameleon. But look here in the mirror. There's the jester. If you
Yep.
look, the jester's head. I can
Really
never
cool
figure here.
detail.
There's the
The
detail of
mohawk.
the jester's head, and he doesn't have it on where he's laying here, but he has it on in the mirror, showing the two sides of that. And you're right, the script is the rags and the riches is this part here, and this is when the band starts to have more excess. In particular, Fish starts to imbibe in
I mean, they even have an attitude in the studio where they're just burning studio time, and that's why the album costs so much. And
exactly.
that is prevalent here to me too. I see excess in, oh, I don't have to record my vocal line today. I could think about the lyrics some more. There's not the urgency, and then that's what created that huge financial problem they found themselves in.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Good point. So we're moving on now to excuse me, the third album.
Mind if I grab
This
a drink
plays,
real quick?
yeah.
All right, I'll be right back.
So we're moving on real quick here to Misplaced Childhood. And this was the original demos were done at Barwell Court Studios, where they started to do some preliminary pre-production work. And again, they wanted to do a concept album, and they decided, hey, if we're going to be dropped, we don't give a shit. We'll, who cares? We're going to go out the way we want to do this. And they ended up going to Albert. I don't know how, I can't read my own notes. Albert Street Studios. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. The concept for this album came as a result of Fish getting a envelope from a girlfriend of his in the mail with an LSD tab in it, and it said, "I think you might enjoy this." He dropped the LSD, and he lived on, I believe, on Albert Street at that point in time in Aylesbury, and he took this LSD tab and started basically tripping and uh, uh, writing a monologue to this trip, and the trip. A stream of consciousness writing of concepts and albums and song titles and lyrics and a storyline. And one of the main things that he recalled from this was he felt a child standing near him in a stairwell dressed as a soldier. And that was where a lot of the imagery and the autobiographical nature of this child in misplaced childhood. A lot of people, Sir Fish is pretty good at revisionist history. He likes to sometimes change the story a little bit because he's a storyteller. So there's always new facts and new details that emerge when he tells the stories. But originally, it was this incident at Albert Street LSD thing, and what ended up, it kind of became from there that it was somewhat autobiographical about his childhood, and so what they wanted while they were writing the material, they actually went out and did 7 gigs in November of '84, and they played side one of the album. And these gigs were like for a family friend, the family of a fellow musician who was killed in a car accident. So they got Chris Kimsey in to produce this, and Chris Kimsey was a producer of note at that point in time because he was starting to produce the Rolling Stones. He was a young guy like them, had a real high ceiling, and they wanted to do something really cool with. They wanted to change things up from Nick Tauber and Simon Hanhart, is what it really came down to. They started doing demos at Bray Studios in the UK, but when they decided to actually do the album, they talked EMI into sending them to Hansa Studios in Berlin. Hansa Studios is very famous for one particular artist in particular. That is one David Bowie when he went to Berlin for his Berlin period trilogy of Low, Lodger, and Heroes. He did those all, I believe, at Hansa Studios. And it was, Cold War, we're talking 1984, 1985 here. The wall had yet to come down. It was cheap, so EMI was okay with it because it was a cheap place to go for the studio time. Um, let's see. They finished recording in May '85, and they talk pretty extensively in the documentary about how the ambiance and the vibe in Berlin was very influential on the sound of this album. And while it doesn't sound like low era Bowie, there's definitely a sound of this album that is unique to the Marillion catalog. And
Yeah.
they recorded a couple of B-sides here, songs called Freaks and Lady Nina, and we'll talk about them briefly then. And they wrote a song called Kaylee, and they weren't trying to write a single. They really weren't trying to write a single. Steve Rothery had a really cool guitar part, and they built this song, and it was about a longtime girlfriend of Fish's named Kay, and I can tell you that album, and that song rather, that single, affected a lot of young girls born in the 80s and their names, because that became a super fashionable girl's name because the song became so big. And we're going to talk about how big the album became in a moment. A few more quick details, and then I'll get Lee in on this. Kaylee, the advanced single, which the EMI A&R guy that came to listen to the album was like, there's no singles on this. What else you got? This is not what we thought we were going to get. Little did he know that the song Kaylee would bust out massively on a slow burn. It wasn't huge initially, but it crept up the charts. It was released May 6, 1985. They did a video for it, which features a waitress in it that Fish met in Berlin, who eventually became his wife. And I forget her name off the top of my head. Not Margaret. I can't remember her name. But anyway, she became his wife. And eventually the song peaked at number 2 in the charts, and it pushed this album. By the time it was released in June 17th, keep in mind, people, now when we get albums that come out, a lot of times it's just the album that drops, particularly in death metal or metal. It's just they drop the album. They don't do a whole lot with singles. Back in the day, a single was released oftentimes 5 months, 6 months, half a year before the actual album drop, so that you could build the anticipation for the album. It still happens a little bit. I mean, Porcupine Tree dropped a single for their album that's not even coming out till June. But I think that's more a function of the way the record industry is at the moment because of the pandemic. Because prior to that, I remember a lot of bands releasing singles and then pulling the album out 6 months later. But this is how you did it in the 80s, the 70s and the 80s, and even in the 90s. You dropped an advanced single, you built, and maybe another single, and you built anticipation for that album so that everyone went out and bought the singles first, and then they bought the album. And I think a lot has to do with the fact that digital media changed everything when it came to singles, because now there was no physical singles to go get, really. It wasn't that important. Now it's all singles. Digital media lets you pull out track by track from any direction you want, and an album is not an important thing anymore, which is, that's a whole nother deep dive we could get into down the road with 10 of us talking about it. I'm going to let you jump in a minute. Released June 17th, 1985, the album went straight to number 1 in the UK. And guess what, kids? Marillion suddenly isn't that little prog band that's kind of known and kind of building their cred. They're now international pop rock prog stars, and they go from coach class to first class. They go to
the engine started.
Learjets, the engine, exactly. Let's see, what else do we have here real quick. This also led to their second appearance on Top of the Pops. I'm sorry?
Single. I was just thinking, you talked about the album in itself charting really high. Lavender also was a huge hit too.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say
Yeah.
the second single, do you have the position on that one?
Number 5
Number
for
5.
Lavender. Number 2
That,
for Kaylee.
right. And 2 for Kaylee and number 5 for Lavender. And Lavender, we're going to get into track by track. What an amazing track.
Oh, yeah.
They went to play their second appearance at Top of the Pops, which is a big deal. And they were going to play Lavender, their second single. And Fish lost his voice, kind of like me a little bit tonight. And he used sheets of paper a la Bob Dylan with the lyrics printed on them, which I'm sure Top of the Pops was mortified by that. But anyways, although they had a huge hit with Misplaced Childhood, they didn't get rich, per se. When they left EMI after this album in 95, they were £500,000, dude. That's 500 grand in debt, even though despite multi-platinum success. That's crazy. And we're going to get into the price of fame that it took on Fish, most notably as a result of this, in the next album. But let's show off our wares. I'm going to let you go first.
Sure. Because you got the better collection.
I know, a little bit.
I mean, you do, yeah, no doubt.
A little bit.
I have one copy. It is a nice copy. Let's see here. 2000s reissue, I believe. It is EMI.
Okay. Yeah, that's 2000.
It said 2000.
2000, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, nothing flashy. I can talk a little bit about the album artwork. So this is a little boy named Robert Meade, who lived very close to Mark Wilkinson, and he used him as the reference photo. He also was in the video, I believe, for Kaylee, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, you definitely have the magpie there. You have the rainbows, both referenced in the songs. We got the chameleon again back in a cage, Jester running out the door. So this was kind of Mark Wilkinson's way, and this is Fish's idea, he told Mark. But basically, let's have the Jester basically say goodbye, and his way of saying goodbye is leaving out the window, which I thought was really interesting.
Lee, I'll be right back.
Sure. A couple other facts. So he's talking about, Kaylee, and that was Fish's girlfriend. I have some direct quotes I thought were really interesting. So Fish was saying in a recent interview, basically, like, he got a lot of opposition about, having the song about his girlfriend. And they were saying, because it's too personal. And if you know Fish, all his lyrics are basically personal. They're just a little ambiguous and abstract, in terms of how they're presented. But the person who objected the most to Kaylee was Mark Kelly. And basically, he just was like, this is his quotes, Kay had been Fish's girlfriend ever since I joined the band, but they split up now. So he was like, we shouldn't call it Kaylee. And then Fish said, well, what do you think we should call it? Maybe. And Steve also was a little uneasy about it. He knew Kay personally. I mean, they all did. And she's a really lovely person. But I guess when Fish kind of sold it as more of like a tribute to Kay, they ended up adopting. And yeah, like he was saying, the AR guys loved the song. And I think for a long time, they didn't even realize it was a concept album, just like 2112, where it was kind of a sneak attack. And it's like, well, here's what we have. And then it ends up being a huge success. Some other things that were interesting was in Berlin, they went kind of crazy. I mean, this was probably the happiest time and the best time for the band right before the album was released. And I'm just like thinking they were super excited, super pumped. They had a little bit of budget, but they're in Berlin. It's a little bit cheaper there at the time. And, they're playing like pranks on Chris. They crashed his rental car. I guess that's a prank back in the 80s. Fish does heroin for the first time and then also the last time. He streaked through some bars. It was definitely a lot of debauchery and recording of this album. And just seems like the calm before the storm. Fish wanted fame, but as we'll find out, he actually didn't want it after he already got it, which is, we hear that time and time again with celebrities. But yeah, I don't know if Jeff's back, but
Yeah, I'm
you
back.
got a lot of
I'm back.
you got a lot of the history really there.
Yeah, I'll touch on some stuff. First of all, I'll show you my original OG 85 copy. This thing is beat the fuck because I listen to it all the time. This one is broken. I got a lot of broken. I'm not one of those dudes that's like, oh my god, my cases have to be pristine. But this
Dude,
one I got in
I am
'85.
that kind of guy. Oh
Huh?
man, I'm that kind of guy. I gotta
I'm
replace them.
not. I'm not that anal retentive, man. I'm just not. And that's cool. I don't have a problem with it. But original EMI logo on there, the big Marillion. This thing got played to death, and I'm not gonna lie. There's probably a lot of nights I was driving around pretty toasty, listening to this like an idiot, and thankfully I didn't hurt anybody. But man, a lot of nights driving around going, Kaylee. Oh,
Yeah.
you know, Kaylee, it's, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to sing with a roached vocals tonight, but you know, for people that don't know it, but you know, lavender's blue, dilly
Oh yeah.
dilly, lavender's green, just so many beautiful songs, man. That's that one. Then the '97 reissue, the double disc with all the cool artwork. You already went over that. Just amazing artwork on this one.
That's actually different though. That's a 2-discer, right?
I'm sorry.
That's 2 discs.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine's a single from 2000. It's actually
No,
different.
this is 2007.
Oh, I thought you
Yeah.
said 97.
All
Okay.
these. Oh wait, did I say 97? What did I say? No, this is 97.
Yeah, that's what's so weird is this was released in 2000, but it's a different copy, and it's interesting that it was so recent.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, you see, there's the you know the this came out as a series, so they did well, they did the first 4 Fish albums. They did Seasons End. They did Holidays in Eden, Afraid of Sunlight, Brave, The Making of Brave. Oh, I think that's where it ended with these '97 reissues.
Yeah.
They call them 24. What happened was they went
24-bit.
they went to 24-bit. That's what it was. So it was just another way for the record company to make more money from suckers like me. This has, you know, the remastered '97 version. It's got Lady Nina, Freaks, Kaylee, Alternative Mix, Lavender Blue, Heart of Lothian Extended Mix, and then it's got the Misplaced Childhood demos recorded February of '85, and that's they recorded those in Bray Studio, I believe. And this has, you know, there's some interesting things on here like Pseudo So Kimona, which is the same as the first track. Kaylee, same as the second track. Lavender, same as the third track. Bittersweet has Brief Encounter, Lost Weekend, previously, and all this was unreleased, by the way. And whereas on the Bittersweet on disc 1, it's got Lost Weekend and Blue Angel. It's got Blue Angel in there. Lords of the Backstage was unreleased, which is, it's tied in with, I believe, that's track 7. Here's track 10. Blue Angels is completely different. Misplaced Rendezvous, which was not on the first side. Heart of Lothian, Wide Boy Curtain Call, Waterhole Espresso Bongo, Passing Strangers, which was not in there. There parts of it were Childhood Ends and White Feather. There's just some additional material here that you don't get with the original album track listing, right? And then we've got the 2017. I'm sorry. I'm gonna blow
And
myself
that
up here.
is what I want more
Yeah.
than anything. That right there.
As you can see, mine is signed by that guy, that big guy. This one has Misplaced Childhood 2017 remaster. It has Live at Utrecht, Netherlands, I believe, 1985, disc 1. I'm sorry, disc 2 is Live at Utrecht, disc 1. It has disc 3 is Live at Utrecht, disc 2. And that has the encores. It's a 13-track live album that I don't think was out anywhere else that I'm aware of. Disc 4 is singles and B-sides. So you got Lady Nina, which was a B-side, Freaks, which is a B-side, Kaylee Alternative Mix, Lavender Blue, Heart of Lothian Extended, Lady Nina, Stephen Wilson stereo remix. And then you've got the Misplaced Childhood demos, which are off that '97 reissue. And on the Blu-ray, you've got the Stephen Wilson remixes, the Misplaced Childhood 5.1, Lady Nina 5.1, Lady Nina stereo remix, Misplaced Childhood 27 remaster. And then you've got Childhood Memories, 72-minute documentary. You got promo vids for Kaylee, Lavender, Heart of Lothian, and Lady Nina. Yeah, good luck finding this reasonably priced. I'm not saying it to you. I'm saying it to anyone that's watching. It's
No,
not
yeah.
an easy one to find. Lastly, a couple of albums to show for this one. We got the OG EMI Misplaced Childhood Press and the gatefold again. And this one again, no insert because the gatefold, but it's got the poly sleeve. And if I remember correctly, does this one have a different colored label? Yeah, this one has the black label instead of the cream label. The same Marillion logo, but a black label. I've heard that one's more valuable. I never, I'm not a Discogs guy. I just don't have the patience for it. If I want to look one individual thing up, I will, but I'll never be listing my shit on it. It's too much work. So singles, 12-inch singles. I'm missing. I think I'm missing one here, man. I thought maybe I left it in my thing, but the Kaylee remix. I'm sorry, Kaylee with the alternate remix, and then there's an extended version that's I think about a minute and a half longer, and then you got Lady Nina, the extended remix or extended version, and this one was no sticker on that one. And then what came out with these around this time, this was a big thing back in the 80s, was the picture discs. The Marillion, this is Kaylee and Freaks. I'm sorry, Lady Nina, rather. Sorry. And then I do have the lavender picture disc, which has lavender blue on here, and it's got
a
Freaks
weird
and
cover.
huh?
Such a weird cover in a way.
Pretty. That's a little. Yeah, it's a little. Now it might not fly.
Yeah.
They got the band here, and this has the one. This side has Freaks and lavender, which then also has lavender blue, which is a little bit different version of lavender. So those are the ones that I have of that. Let's get into you want me to do my track rundown and then come to you, or you want to go first?
Well, let me see if there's any facts that I can add.
Sure.
With what you had there, I think it is interesting. Lavender is loosely based off of a Scottish kind of folk song that I don't forget the exact name, but it has lavender in the name. So I think some of the melodies might be picked up from that. Let's see. Actually, I think we covered quite a bit here. Yeah, how about this? You go through the track list. I'll get my thoughts together. And
hey, Nick, what's up, dude? We're narrowing down the pike. I think we still probably have 30 to 45 minutes. It's probably going to be about a 3-hour stream. I think we'll probably cap it off there. So if you guys want to do a after party stream, it'll probably be in the 12:30 range, I'm thinking. Which I invited a few people, but I'll have to pop out and start a new stream. So good to see you, Nick. Thanks. We're pretty deep in. We're on album 4 right now, but we're actually 3. We're wrapping up with.
We're making good pace.
Yeah, we're moving. I had some struggles with my voice, so it's a little bit slower than usual. Pseudo Silkamona, man, I love how that opens up. Kaylee's a beautiful pop song. If you don't like Kaylee, you're fucked in the head. I'm just saying that. It's amazing. Lavender.
Hey, can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
So I've seen the crowds. I get that Marillion in the mid 80s, 85, this era, they were huge in Europe and UK specifically. I don't have a pulse on. I get that you love Marillion and you're like a cult fan, but did Kaylee really make any kind of really big impact in America? Or
yeah, it was a hit. It was a minor hit. It wasn't a huge hit. I don't know. We'd have to look up and see. You'd have to look it up there. And I didn't look that up. It was not the mega hit it was in UK and Europe.
Everything was just UK charts, and everything I'm seeing is success in UK. And I do think there's a big gap between the American audience. And,
the building success of this and then clutching allowed them to come over and open for Rush again, like on a bigger scale. And they also were able to come over and do actual US tours as opposed to the very early stuff, which was very difficult. It was difficult for them to get a foothold over here off script and Fugazi, and even as big as this was, they weren't. They still weren't able to come over here and become a marquee band and play Radio City or play
They're still nobody's
even
band.
a large. They still would have been a club band here, which maybe wouldn't have paid them because of the production values that they wanted to use.
Right.
And so, yes, was Kaylee a hit here? I don't know that it was a hit like it was over across the pond, but it did get noticed. And I remember very well seeing the video on MTV in 1985, and I was like,
Okay.
"Holy shit!" I was like, "Holy fuck, it's
Yeah.
them!"
Boys are
Yeah,
growing
so
up.
that was definitely it was there. Bittersweet, really cool track. Heart of I was born with a heart of Lothian. Great song.
Third single.
Waterhole is the one weird one on there I don't love for some reason. It's kind of weird. Lords of the Backstage is great. Blind Curve is great. Childhood's End is fantastic, and White Feather. But this is going to be an unpopular opinion. This one may be my least favorite of the four.
Okay. And why?
And it's not that I don't love it. I do, but there's just so many high points on the other three that I I don't find this one as like when I haven't listened to it in a long time and I put it on, I'm like, man, I forgot how good this is. And there's a lot of amazing moments on it, but I don't like a lot of Marillion fans, and maybe you are going to say this is my favorite album.
We'll
But
see.
what's that?
I said we'll see.
We'll see, right? But I mean, I'm not there yet. When we get to the end, we'll talk about it. But
Yeah.
it's. And then again, dude, I listen to this thing incessantly. So, for me to say that it's not my favorite doesn't necessarily mean that I don't love it. I mean, this canon of four albums, like I said when I let off, this is right there with 2112, Farewell to Kings, Hemispheres, and moving Permanent Waves of Moving Pictures as a five group. I would actually say Farewell Kings to Moving Pictures is my favorite. But then again, I have like a 7 album stretch for Rush that's incredible. But these albums are so incredible and they mean so much to me. It's gonna be like killing one of your children to put one at one and one at four. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. It's tough.
So yeah, that album changed everything. And did I? Oh, I got. I want to go to you on the.
Tracks.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I think generally, like, I can kind of see what you're saying. So, like I was saying earlier, I listened to all the albums 3 times this week, and I know people who like in the YouTube sphere, like when you guys do that, it does change your perspective a lot. And this actually is like, for me, this is probably my first deep dive, like kind of talking about this stuff. So I want to, it's kind of a slight aside, but like I now realize how much effort everybody puts into each video that they put out because you have to do so much research to really give it justice. So doing it firsthand this week, like I got a lot of respect for Thralls, for Dreadful Minutes, for Brian. Like you guys do a shit ton of research and it shows. So kudos to that.
Right. Cool.
Now back on track.
Hey
Listen to
Lee.
all 3.
Hey Lee.
Yeah.
We're fucking awesome. Just that's what you were trying to say, right?
Yes, exactly. And I'm trying to meet that. But
you're getting there, buddy. You're getting there.
No, this is a great album, and this is what I'd recommend anybody trying to get into Marillion. This is the best starting place, in my opinion. But the first half is where it's at, and it's the best of the pop albums for them. And what's so cool about this album is the way Pseudo, Kaylee, Lavender, Bittersweet, and Heart Lothian are all tied together. I think this is the best album to this point for the band of tracks transitioning really smoothly into the next. And it's like, how Steven Wilson recently has been like, okay, pop is the new prog, and like, I'm going to impress everybody by being like somewhat of a pop star. Like these guys did it way first and better.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like, yes, if you are so prog, you really would be masters of pop. So why not try to do that? And I feel like they mastered that with the first half of this album. The
I agree.
second half is good, and it completes the story, but it's a lot of. It reminds me of a play, right? There's always in a play and like a musical, there's the standout numbers, and then there's the stuff that connects it all together. Standout numbers are all fronted on this one, but it does play as a good cohesive whole. And I know some people say like this is like the dark side of the moon for Marillion. To me, it's way more like the wall in a lot of ways. It just has more of that parallel where the peaks are really high, and then there's a lot of kind of bridging and atmospheric, like setting the stage tracks.
That's a great way to put it. Great way to put it. There's, like you said, there's a lot of atmosphere on this album, and
Yeah,
the bridging sections are just as important to the context of the whole album as the actual song sections are the more isolated tracks are. You know what I mean? And I
yeah,
think, for example, the someone said the Blue Angels section, which is who was it here? It was Scott Wilcox. Thanks for
yeah.
chiming in and
Bittersweet.
checking us out, Scott. Yeah, I agree. It's such a beautiful section of music, and um, how this thing kind of builds as it goes along is an important key to it. And I think what you said about this is kind of almost the perfect juxtaposition of pop, rock, and prog, because it's not overly complex in terms of ELP style sonatas and crazy fucking
There's no noodling
noodling.
whatsoever on
Exactly.
any Marillion album. Really,
Everything fulfills a purpose in each song, and the lyrics to the vocal melodies to the solos to like, okay, Kaylee, the solo by Steve Rothery, again, the secret weapon of Marillion, Steve Rothery.
oh yeah,
That solo, it's, and again, I apologize for my ratchet vocal, my ratchet Tennessee Titans failure voice here. That solo is so goddamn melodically perfect. It's just, it couldn't be better if he tried. And it's just amazing what Rothery does. Every album, he ups the bar, and he gets it even better on the next one, in my opinion, on
I
many
agree.
tracks. Again, very
Lavender
unique
guitar part,
sound.
super hooky.
Yeah.
That like kind of like emotional playing. I
Well,
mean,
when he does the little part where it's like down, 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 down,
yeah,
down, 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 bum, 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 bum. It's a perfect fucking prog song, man.
let me
It's
ask you a quick
amazing.
question.
And sorry.
Let me ask you a quick question.
Yep.
Tell me if you kind of feel my drift here. So, approach wise, not the actual ultimate sound that comes out. Do you see how Rothery's playing is kind of like what Gilmore does for Pink Floyd, like in terms of
Very, very
approach?
much so. Very much so. He's a textural player. He's not I mean, he's good. Don't get me wrong, he's a very good player, but he's not a Satriani or Vai shredder dude.
Yeah, it's the
But he
part.
doesn't have to be. He's a textural player, and he adds depth, width, and girth to songs. And what you see in here, hey dude, what's up, buddy? What you hear from Rothery is textbook, in my opinion. Again, I said it earlier, I'll say it again. Steve Rothery is possibly the most underrated guitar player in prog and rock, and his
Yeah,
ability to write melodic, memorable hooks is, man, it's it's, I don't want to use the word unparalleled, but I'm getting close with that word. He's stunning. He's a stunning fucking player, and more people should know about this guy. But that's a perfect analogy or
that
comparison is
connection. Yeah,
Gilmore. Gilmore is not going to blow you away with insane technique and a million notes and complex structures to his solos, he just plays exactly what the song needs. And if you didn't hear that song with that solo, it would never sound right and it would never sound complete. And Rothery, again, on Kaylee, I'd have a hard time picking out my favorite Steve Rothery solo because it would be about 25 songs long. But man, that solo in Kaylee is fucking unbelievable. It is just, it goes right here in your heart and starts just pulling and just, hey man, I'm here and you're gonna feel this solo. It's just that beautiful, man. Hey, good to see you, Kellen. Glad you're
With
here, bud.
with Haley, I think also being like Americans, I think we benefited from it not being shoved in our face as much, maybe as like some UK fans, just from like what I've read and stuff.
What do you what
Like
do you
for
what do you mean, like a song like "Shout" or "Everybody Wants to Rule the World" or something? Or
yeah, like to us, Kaylee is like a minor hit like in the American market, right?
right?
But from what I've understood in like Britain, like Kaylee is like so well known for
Oh
people
yeah,
of that age group that it's like,
it's
oh,
huge.
Kaylee's on again. It's
It's
like
huge. Yeah.
Journey for us or some shit, man.
Again, we talked about it, and it's not been beaten to death over here.
Exactly.
That being said, though, I want to backtrack a second and say that uh, I mentioned two songs by Tears for Fears, "Shout" and "Everybody Wants to Rule the World." They fucking rule. They rule. Oh,
Right.
don't even get me started on Tears for Fears. That's a future episode coming down the road because that band there might not be a better pop songwriting duo ever in history. We'll get to that later, somewhere
Yeah.
down the road.
Hot take,
Let's
but yeah.
let's move on to the fourth and final album in the studio catalog of Marillion,
All right.
and that is called that's 1987's "Clutching at Straws." I don't have a lot of data on this one as far as like where it was recorded and all that stuff. I guess let me
London.
see.
This
Where
was
was
in
it?
London. This was back in London.
Okay. Um, this album deals a lot with Fish's struggle with fame, his alcohol and drug use, which had been escalating, his marriage, which was, he got married and had to go off to the United States to do press literally the day after he got married. Um, they initially tried to make a Misplaced Childhood Part 2, but scrapped it almost immediately because they just felt it wasn't the right thing to do. Um, the album was released on 6/22/87. It was West Side Studios where they recorded it. Chris Kimsey again is producing. It went to number 2 in the UK, and I believe it went to number 3 in the States, didn't it?
I don't know about the States, but yeah, number 2 in the
I
UK.
thought I saw number 3, and I didn't have
That's
time to go
pretty
back and
high.
check it before I got on with you, so I might have missed that.
I can look it up.
I would say of all their albums, this album is the one that sounds the least dated. But I don't really think any of their albums sound dated, with the exception of a little bit of Script. But you know my love for that album. I don't have a lot to say about this one from a historical perspective, except to say that Fish was really, really struggling at this point with a lot of demons and a lot of internal issues with the band itself. And I'm hoping, Lee, that you did some research on why he left the band,
Sure. Yeah, I got
and
some stuff on that.
so we'll get to that in a minute. Um, let's Before we talk about Fish leaving, let's pull the album up and go through it, and then we'll talk about Fish leaving. How's that sound?
Sure. You want me to
So
add some more history to it? I
yeah.
got a
If you
little
got that,
summary.
let's do that.
Yeah. So it is about Fish, but it is under the guise of this character called Torch, or how Fish would
Right.
say, he say Torche or whatever. I have a terrible Scottish
No, it's
accent.
Torch.
Yeah.
Torch.
But yeah, he has an accent. He says things a little differently. But I just have a terrible, I'm bad at impressions.
That's cool.
Yeah, but it's like a self-penned obituary basically, and he definitely lays his heart on the tracks. And when he's writing all these lyrics, you can tell that he has some guilt for feeling not only like kind of bad about them becoming successful because that's what he wanted. I mean, imagine this. You're the leader of the band and you're like, I want this band to be huge and big. And then you get that, and then you're the guy who's like, oh, I don't want this anymore. Like, that's a really shitty place to be in. And I think a lot of the lyrical content comes to that feeling, even though it's about this concept album with this guy named Torch, and he's trying to write like basically this great novel. And in that time, he goes back to his old digs. He gets bad habits. He's really just kind of floundering. And he's 29 years old, Torch is. So is Fish. So it's obviously very parallel, and he wasn't really trying to hide it. It did spend the least amount of time on the UK charts, which I think is worth noting. That's probably a little bit of the sign of the times rather than a judgment of the music, I think.
Yep.
And it's hard to really market this album because the song tracks themselves, I'll let you talk in a minute about them, Jeff, but they're not, it's like, while they're catchy, the names themselves, like, could you actually imagine seeing that on a chart? We'll talk about that in a second. And I think that, like, Incommunicado, the song that basically nobody in the band liked besides Fish at first, that was the one that the whole A&R team and the producers were like, okay, that's the one.
That's the single, yeah.
Right. And it is a great song, but it is a little bit different. It's kind of Who-like.
It's a little, I got to say, that is my absolute, well, that and Just for the Record. That's probably my least favorite song, but it's the most.
Burn Just for the Record.
I'm not crazy about that song.
Man, I love that song.
Incommunicado is the pop upbeat song, and I see why it's the obvious single. It's my least favorite song on the album, without question. And real quick to answer this, Metalhead Musing. I'm probably the wrong guy to ask about this because
I agree with that.
I think that most people would say yes. I'm not sure I would, but I think I get why most people would say that. So I would say yes. And it's a brilliant album, and I love it to death, but it's probably my least favorite of the four. So, yeah, interesting perspective there, but I think Lee had said this is probably the best place to start, and I agree with that. Kellen, Nick says, bouncing back and forth between this and another Killing Joke, so I'm catching bits. Hey, motherfucker, what the fuck are you you're saying? You're bouncing? You're saying Killing Joke is more important than Marillion? Oh. You know, I used to love you, Nick, but I just don't think I love you no more. What else we got here? We got Christ, Brian's not even watching. Good Lord, these guys are not our friends, Lee. I'll let Nick answer that, but let's put it this way, Kellen. There will be a massive Killing Joke deep dive on gas masks and hand grenades. I can't answer that. Nick will have to answer that, I'm sure. And I know what he's prepping for, and it's what I just brought up. So let's talk about the tracks, and then we'll get into the Fish situation, okay?
Sure.
Do you want to go first?
No, I'll let you.
Okay. Well, let me flex.
Yeah, go for it.
And I've got the Fish Auto version, and this is a 5 disc. All of them are 5 discs except Fugazi. That's the only 4-disc one. This has Clutching at Straws, the 2018 Andy Bradfield and Avril McIntosh remix, which was from 2018. They've got live at the Edinburgh Playhouse, December 19th, 87, Michael Hunter mix. That's disc 2, and disc 3 is the full show. It's incomplete, though, because they're missing My Generation, Margaret, and Let's Twist Again from the full set list. So they have 19 tracks, but they're missing that little medley of songs there, which are all covers. Disc 4 is Clutching at Straws Demos, which has Beaujolais Day, Story from the Thin Wall, Shadows on the Barley, Exile on Princess Street, Sunset Hill, Tic Tac Toe, Voices in the Crowd, White Russian, Sugar Mice in the Rain, and previously unreleased demos of Hotel Hobbies, Warm Wet Circles, the Mosaic demos, Just for the Record, Torch Song, and Slage La Mauve. And then on the Blu-ray, you've got the Andy Bradfield Avril McIntosh remix. So actually, Steve Wilson didn't do this one. I was wrong. I thought he did, but he didn't.
Andy, right?
Huh?
Andy Bradfield.
Andy Bradfield did, yeah. So he did the 2018 remixes of the stereo remix, the 5.1 mix, and the master audio 5.1 remix. There's promo videos for Incommunicado, Sugar Mice, Warm Up Circles. There's an 87 album mix of Clutching at Straws, which is the original. And then you got a 99 remaster bonus track, Tucson, which was the B-side, Incommunicado alternative version, and Going Under, which is a really cool song. I forgot about Going Under. I like that song a lot. And then the final straw was the 60-minute documentary, which I wish I had watched. I just didn't have time with everything that's going on with my dad's health and everything like that. I got to say, man, from a nostalgia and sentimental point of view, Script is my favorite, but this is probably my favorite album by then.
Hard to top.
Huh?
Hard to top. I'm with you.
I mean, the first 4 songs, Hotel Hobbies, Warm Wet Circles, That Time of the Night, The Short Straw, Going Under. Oh my fucking God. It is, those 4 songs are so incredible, so stunning, and so beautiful. And man, Warm Wet Circles, good Lord, it's just fucking amazing. That Time of the Night, Going Under is just this haunting thing. Hotel Hobbies, incredible. Then you get into White Russian, which I like. I don't love. I like it. Incommunicado, we talked about, probably my least favorite song. Torch Song, I fucking love Torch Song. Oh my God, Torch Song. Oh man, let me just. We did some lyric reading before. I want to read a little bit of lyrics to this.
Pull out your Bibles.
What's that?
Pull out your Bibles.
I will in a minute. I'm going to go from the book here. We've got. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Bear with me, folks. That time of the night. All right, so we've got. Come on now.
Torch Song, right?
Yeah, Torch Song. Read some Kerouac, and it put me on the tracks to burn a little brighter now. It was something about Roman candles fizzing out, shine a little light on me now. I found a strange fascination with a liquid fixation. Alcohol can thrill me now. It's getting late in the game to show any pride or shame. I just burn a little brighter now, burn a little brighter now. Doctor says my liver's looking like leaving with my lover. Need another timeout now. Like any sort of hero, turning down to zero, so standing out in the crowd, pulling 17 with experience and dreams, sweating out a happy hour. When you're hiding 29, you know it ain't a crime to burn a little brighter now. And then there's a little interlude of the doctor saying, my advice is if you maintain this lifestyle, you won't reach 30. And that's actually Fish. And he says, Christ, it's a romantic way to go, really. It's part of the heritage. It's your round, isn't it? We burn a little brighter now, and it's about Fish's spiral into alcoholism. I don't know if he was an alcoholic, but he certainly was really kicking his own ass. And I love that song. One more lyric here. I just want to throw this. This one, man, Warm Wet Circles just blows my fucking mind. On promenades where drunks propose to lonely arcade mannequins, where ceremonies pause at the jeweler's shop display, feigning casual silence and strained romantic interludes till they commit themselves to the muted journey home, and the pool player rests on another cue, last night's hero picking up his dues. A honeymoon gambled on a ricochet. She's staring at the brochure at the holidays, chalking up a name in your hometown, standing all your mates to another round, laughing at the world till the barman wipes away the warm, wet circles, the warm, wet circles. Man, it's so autobiographical, but it's so perfect. And, just to wrap up here, The Last Straw, happy ending, amazing. Slash Lamov is kind of like their crowd pleaser, big fucking epic tune.
Big live song.
Oh, so good.
They opened
And Sugar
with
Mice. Sugar Mice is so fucking heartbreakingly beautiful. I love that album, and if I got to put them in order, it's that one, Script, Fugazi, and Misplaced, which is bizarre.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd have said that until tonight.
I can
I've
see
had a
that.
little wine. I'm not drunk, although my voice makes it sound like I am. But real quick, the OG Capitol version from '87. It's ruined. The inside's ruined. Oh wait, is it? No, this one's actually good. Lyrics and some the martini glass from the bar, and I think it's worth noting. Or do you want to go over the art? I'll let you go over the art.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I got it.
Yeah, talk about that. And real quick here, I'll finish my flex with two things: the '97 reissue with
Nice.
incommunicado alternative version, Tucson, Going Under, Beaujolais Day, all the stuff that I read off the 40th anniversary box set. Again, cool artwork on this one. There's the on the CD, and that's Torch. Kind of looks a little like Fish if you look at it hard enough.
Yeah.
Last thing. Oh no, that was it. That was it. Sorry, I thought I had an album, man. I was like all excited to show it, and I'm like, I don't own that album, damn it. All right,
All right,
your turn, buddy.
let's talk about the album artwork real quick. So just going in quick here. So this was somewhat of a rush job from Mark Wilkinson. It's actually his least favorite Marillion cover, and I think a lot of it's just the emotions of having the record label breathing down his neck, making sure that it happened on time. There was just a lot of pressure around it, so he feels like it was a little bit rushed. So the characters here, we got Torch in the front, and then from left to right, we have some other kind of drunken or drug abuser writers and people of literature. So we have Robert Burns, Dylan Thomas, Truman Capote, and Lenny Bruce. And then on the back, back of the CD here, we got in the front, we have John Lennon. And then we have James Dean, and then Jack Kerouac, and then the band members are all mixed in there right around the billiards table. So I think that's really interesting. But I mean, I kind of see, like, if I'm looking at it objectively, it is my least favorite of the album artworks. But if we're talking about the music, if you had asked me last week before listening to all the albums 3 times each, I would have said Misplaced is my favorite. But I can safely say this is my favorite for sure. I still think it's harder to. It's still not what I'd recommend a first-time listener, though.
I wouldn't either. I agree.
But man, it's so good. There's so much depth, and it just gets better every time.
It's dense, it's thick, it's gorgeous. It's haunting, and you want to talk about atmosphere. Those first 4 tracks, you can't get any better atmosphere on any album than that. It's just that simple,
For sure. Yeah, and I also think it's the best production. Like you were talking about how it's aged the best.
Yep.
The drum sound is way more real and just really good. And the drum sound on Misplaced is like super 80s in a lot of ways, in my opinion.
Yes, they do.
So love the performances on here. What it really reminds me of is a band that's tearing apart at the seams. Nobody really likes each other, but they know each other so well that they know how to write extremely good music, like Fleetwood Mac with Rumors. They knew each other so well that they were able to basically come up with this awesome thing. And I think that's what they got here.
Yeah, it's a great comparison there. And
man, it's good.
You know what? If I didn't say it, I think I did, but this is without question, to me, their most mature sounding album. It's a band that really has come into its full powers, and they don't sound like a prog band much on here. On occasion they do, like Incommunicado a little bit, and hold on.
They sound like they're past prog, man.
White Russian and Incommunicado are, like, to me, they're the prog songs. This now sounds like a fully fledged hyper attuned band that just knows how to write incredible songs with incredible depth. And Fish's vocals are incredible. The guitar playing again is fucking phenomenal. By what is Steve Rothery again? What did I call him, Lee?
Well, you called him unparalleled, right?
I called him the secret weapon of Marillion.
Secret weapon,
The
yeah.
guy is unfucking paralleled. He's underappreciated. He's amazing. And again, oh my God, there's some solos on That Time of the Night and Warm Wet Circles and Hotel Hobbies just are mind blowing, man. I mean, The Last Straw. Oh,
I
just
love in Hotel Hobbies. I love it, man. Every time I hear it when he goes cocaine instead of cocaine, he goes cocaine.
cocaine. Yeah, cocaine.
Yeah, I love how he says that when he sings it. It's just like it's all about his delivery, man. He's just amazing.
Stunning, dude. And again, the lyrics. Again, we've read a fair amount of lyrics from this guy. If you know, I'm not a lyrics guy like you most of the time, especially when we're talking about death metal and
Yeah.
There's very few lyricists that I pay attention to. Neil Peart is one. Bob Dylan is one. And frankly, this guy, because he's fucking insanely good. You know, I showed this album here. I'll probably never look at the lyrics on this. I might, I probably won't. But and Steve Harris is a pretty good lyricist. He's okay. Bruce is pretty decent too. He's not on that level. I'm sorry, he's just not on that level at all. And Fish, man, Neil Peart. Oh, so hard to choose from those two. But I gotta say, Fish might be just that slight bit above Neil, and that's difficult for me to say, as you would know. As I said, I don't think to me there's a 4-album catalog that blows me away personally like this, other than Rush from 2112 to Power Windows, which was several albums. I'd have to count them, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 albums there. Sabbath has a pretty good run of consecutive albums that are fucking amazing. I'm sure if I sit down and think real hard, I could come up with a couple other bands that have, Maiden has a pretty good run of albums. Every band has that meat and potatoes group of albums that you're like, man, from here to here, it just doesn't get any better. I love Marillion. I like the Hogarth era of Marillion. There's some really good albums there. I don't think we're going to do a deep dive. If we ever touch on that, we may touch on some individual
favorites.
We might do some favorites, top 5s or something. I think it should be noted real quick, though, before we leave. There's a couple things to talk about. We talked about Reel to Reel. There is another live album with Fish, official live album that came out called The Thieving Magpie, La Gaza Ladra. Can you look this up and tell me where this was recorded? Because my inserts are damaged from water and I can't read them, and I did not have time. This is a great live set. I thought it was the Reading Festival, but I may be wrong on that. Because this is after Fish left, and it was after Clutching came out.
Yeah, I'll look up where it was recorded.
Yeah, I imagine you don't have that.
I do not have a copy of it now.
It's a great set. Of course, it's been doctored a little bit in the studio. It's not all entirely live. Guys, I'm going to get to comments in a second. We're going to wrap here soon, and then we're going to do a post stream when I get a bite to eat and set up a stream. So, and I do want to mention one more thing. Do you get some info on this one?
I'm pulling it up now. It's taking a second.
Okay. While you're talking about that, let me mention one thing. This is the first Steve Hogarth album after Fish left. And we do have to talk about Fish leaving, and that we'll talk about that at the very end here. This album is comprised of many songs that were already in development after, while Fish was still in the band and before he left. And there's some amazing songs on here, like Easter, Holloway Girl, Berlin is incredible. Hooks and You. It's a different band when Hogarth gets into it. This one is the most Fish-like until they put out Brave. There are some great albums in the Hogarth catalog. This one, Season's End, Afraid of Sunlight, Brave is fucking bonkers good. Afraid of Sunlight and Brave are my two favorite Hogarth. Marbles is incredible. Anarachnophobia is very good. Holidays in Eden is a little poppy for me, but there's some really good songs on it. Radiation isn't bad. And some of their later albums you're more familiar with, Lee, because I kind of haven't paid attention.
Yeah.
But what do you got on Legazo Ladra?
It was recorded at the Hammersmith Odeon in
Okay.
London.
What year?
80. It's saying 86, which actually is earlier than I thought. I thought it was more like 87.
I thought it was too, because well, they must have been playing some of those songs before they released them then.
Yeah, sounds like it. Because it was, I mean, I think the big thing with this one too was the Misplaced Childhood second disc all the way through, you know.
But I think that's the only they only put out 2 live albums that I'm aware of with Fish, and that was the second one. And it's worth owning. It's good if you're a Fish completist. I will say and I don't know if that'll include Lee or whether it'll be me, or hopefully it's Lee, but I don't want to go make him buy the entire Fish catalog. But I own everything but the last 2 Fish albums, and the last one was very, very good. I don't have Feast of Consequences. I'll see about grabbing it. I'm not sure. I may have to listen to it online. I own everything by Fish. If you think my Marillion collection's pretty insane, where do you see my Fish collection? I have, I don't have any vinyl, but I have a ridiculous amount of Fish albums.
It would be pretty funny if you showed up prepared for this Fish, and then I showed my fucking
that would
terrible
be weird.
champion.
That would definitely be weird.
We're completely off on the wrong, parallel.
A couple of quick stories, real fast. I did not get to see Fish with Marillion. However, I was let me see, where am I at here? I was there. I was this close. And when I say this close, I was one date off. And here's what happened. Marillion opened for Rush in 1987 on the Power Windows tour. And they did a bunch of Canadian dates. I knew that they were opening, and I don't remember how, because this would have been pre-internet. I don't know if I read it somewhere. Somehow I found out. I might have heard it on the radio or seen an advertisement in a magazine or something. I got two tickets for the show in Philadelphia, the Power Windows show in I want to say it was April of 87. And, obviously I'm like thinking, oh my God, I'm going to see my 2 favorite bands, dude. I am fucking psyched. We get there and Blue Oyster Cult comes out. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Later on, I find out Fish left. Marillion left the tour 2 nights before in New York, after New York City gigs. So I never got to see Fish perform with Marillion, which is painful. I do know one person that did see them out in California on the, I think it was on the Clutching the Straws tour in 87 when they were actually on their own. I have seen Marillion 4 times. I saw them the first time when they were over for, I want to say it was Anarachnophobia, I think, or it was Marillion.com maybe. It was one of those 2. I can't remember which one. And I didn't research this part of things. So, and I got to say, Steve Hogarth is an amazing performer and an amazing singer. And clearly a better musician than Fish, because Fish isn't a musician. I then saw them. Oh, funny story there. I'm at the TLA in Philadelphia, and I'm standing by there's a door that goes back to the back, but it's like a curtain, and I'm standing there watching Marillion, and Mike Portnoy walks up to me and pulls out his license and flashes it at me. I'm like, he's like, "You're security, right?" I'm like, "No, dude, I'm just watching the show, man. But I know who you are, and I know you know those guys." And he's like, "Oh, okay, cool, man." I met Mike a bunch of times, and Mike's always cool. That was for, again, that Marillion. That would have been, God, man, when was that? 2002, maybe 3. I don't remember. I then saw Los Morillos, which was Pete Trujillo, Steve Rothery, and H. Hogarth. And they did sort of a semi-acoustic, semi-electric thing, which I saw them in Philly at WXPN. And I'm lying. I only saw them 3 times. I saw them on the Fear, Fuck Off and Fuck Everybody and Run or whatever thing. Okay. and they were fantastic. I saw them in DC for that. They were really awesome. I have not really kept up with them since probably Marbles. I got to be honest with you. I've just not picked up a lot of those albums. I've listened to them, but a lot of them just leave me a little bit cold. But you know what? On your recommendation, I'm gonna dig back into them a little bit, and we'll see where we go with it. I'm not as in that zone as I used to be, but that doesn't mean I won't like them. So, did you ever see them?
Specifically, this one.
What's that?
So Fear, yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
Fear,
one I
right.
recommend from
Okay.
more recent.
Have you ever seen them?
No, unfortunately. I want to though, and I think they're releasing something this year, so maybe they'll do a U.S. tour.
Yeah, they are. It's coming up. I think it's coming up real soon, actually, March, I believe, or
The
maybe
album
even
release,
February.
right?
Huh?
Album release, right?
Yes.
Not
Yeah, I
tour.
think it's
Yeah.
coming up in either late February or March. I saw it. I didn't listen to it yet, but because of this, I'm gonna dig back into that catalog a little bit. So tell me, Lee, because this is where I did not get to, and I should have known this better. I've met Fish many times. I've seen Fish 6 or 7 times solo. I've hung out with him, drank a beer with him, and he's just a fucking great dude, an amazing dude to be around. Just so fun, so fun. But I don't really know exactly why he left Marillion, and that's terrible. And I should know that. But can you add any insight? And
Sure. So I know like what kind of went down the last couple of days, like the straw that broke the camel's back. But I mean, the big story or what they tell the press is basically that Fish just thought that the band was getting too big, basically, which, you know, I guess was somewhat of a case, but they never even really, they could have gone even farther. That's the thing, because here's
for
the
sure,
story. They were scoping out their next album, and
yeah,
guess who they were meeting? Bob
no,
Ezrin
oh
of
wow,
The Wall and
I did not
Kiss
know
and
that.
all that. So imagine like imagine Marillion with a Bob Ezrin production. I mean,
I don't know if I want to hear that. Honestly, I'm not
that
sure I
would
would.
be interesting though.
I guess
I
I
bet it
don't
would
know
have
if I
been
like
good.
that idea. I never knew that, dude. I never knew that.
Yeah.
I learned something here tonight, which is incredible. Um, so what was the straw? I know that being away from home, partying, being the lead guy that always had to do the interviews while all those guys
Right.
went off and had their normal lives, and he was kind of always feeling like he was the odd man out and the point man for everything. I know those all played in his addictions or his dalliances with coke and pills and things like that. What were the final straw, so to speak?
It was after meeting Bob, actually. So here, let me just read directly from this, if that works for you. So this is from Fish's perspective. Bob came down to meet the band in some studio in Surrey. He said, "Okay, play me what you got," and the band played all the bits and pieces they had. And then Bob said, "There are no songs here, just bits." So after Bob left, the band started going, "All right, let's try joining this bit with this bit." And then Fish he just blew up and he said, "This is a fucking waste of time. I can't deal with it." He left the studio, ran out, went to his cousin's house in Wiltshire. He drank a 40-ounce Jim Beam on his own, and he was still standing because he was so stressed. He woke up the next morning with a clear head, apparently, and he basically photocopied a 5-page letter to the band and management, and it basically said either fundamental changes are made, one of those being he wanted 50% of the publishing,
Ooh,
or we get rid of John Arneston, the manager.
manager, yeah.
Right. So then basically the next thing they know, like probably within the day or the next day, he gets a phone call from manager saying the band decided to accept her resignation. So it all just went too far. And another thing with Clutching is that even in hindsight, Fish likes this album a lot, but a lot of the band members kind of can't dissociate their feelings from the music.
Yeah, right.
So they don't really like it that much.
Yeah, because there was a lot of raw feelings there. Now they are all friends again. Fish has admitted that was an asshole and that his ego had gotten kind of out of control. And he went on to do a lot of incredible solo work. I know John Wesley pretty well. Porcupine Tree's rhythm guitar player. And John was also Fish's guitar player for quite a while before he was with Porcupine Tree.
Yeah.
He also wrote a lot of songs on the album Fellini Night or Fellini Days. Played on Rain Gods with Zippos. That tour did a lot of tours with him, and there was some moments that John's the kind of guy that's a classy guy that never talks about anybody bad because he doesn't want to burn any bridges. Although he did about the porcupine tree guys, so that is never happening again. But with Fish, he alluded to people. I won't say me, but I might have been present. I might not have been. That Fish is pretty stingy with cash. And he wrote a bunch of songs on Fellini and didn't get the kind of publishing royalties he should have, and that kind of fractured their friendship for a while. I think they're okay now, but it's as cool as I think Fish is. I do think he is a bit of a user when it comes to musicians because he can't write himself. He can write melodies, he can write incredible lyrics, he can write vocal melodies, but he can't sit down and play a keyboard. He can't sit down and really play a guitar or a drum. And he needs other people to assist him in writing music. And he's burned some bridges doing stuff like that. But he's a lovable dude. And I've had, I'll never forget, he had one of his on his original website back around the Sunsets on Empire album. He there was an email address, and I just threw an email at him and said, "Hey, you should come play in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in this club." It's like, come on, man. He fucking responded to me, and I've had a couple back and forths with him a couple of times. One time over, I got a damaged copy of a book. Well, actually, it was the clutching book that he signed. It's all rubbed raw here.
Yeah.
On the edges. And he's like, that's how they came from the manufacturers. And these are made with a really interesting matte type thing. It's not gloss. And it's like, you can't really see it, but it's
like a texture.
It's textured. Yeah, it's textured. So like they all are. And they do, if you rub them against one of each other, they'll wear that ink off. And so you got to be careful with those. So yeah, it was a shame when Fish left, dude. I was brokenhearted. I could not listen to the new Fish for years. The new Fish. I'm sorry, the new Marillion. I just didn't want to hear. I heard Easter and I liked it, but not much. I was like, it's not the same, man. It's not the same. And it took me. I gotta say, it probably took me about 5 to 7 years to warm up to Hogarth, even though he's technically a much better singer. I just wasn't into it, and I really battled that whole thing. And I will tell you that old line Marillion fans, they are usually Team Fish or Team Hogarth, and some of us like me have kind of we've met in the middle a little bit, but it's no comparison for me. If you said which Marillion do you want to listen to, with the exception of Brave and Afraid of Sunlight and Marbles, there's no Hogarth album that comes remotely close to those first four Fish albums, and those honestly are 5, 6, and 7 for me easily. Right. Not in any order there. Those three are 5, 6, and 7 in some order. There's no way anyone will ever replace the Fish era material for me or by me, and these albums are beyond nostalgia for me. They're deep. They're deep in here. They're deep in my heart, and they're deep in my consciousness as to what roles they played from 83 through 87. Now, you're talking, I'm a junior in high school when I get Script, and I'm a senior when Fugazi comes out. I'm a freshman in college when Misplaced comes out, and I'm a sophomore in college when Clutching comes out. And you're 30 or 35?
Yeah, 30.
You're 30. So, I am literally, when the last Marillion comes out, I'm 23, and it seems incredulous to me that material is that old now. and of course it's stupid because Sabbath and Crimson are in the Court of the Crimson King is
Right.
only I'm only 2 years older than that, but this stuff means so much to me that I can't extricate myself from the importance of that music to my heart and soul and my consciousness. That it's I'm telling you, man, like I'm not kidding when I say that that 7 or 8 album stretch of Rush is probably the most important stretch of music ever in my life, but this is right nipping on its heels at times. And this band with this singer and with these lyrics and those musicians on it. I think I've made my point. I don't think I can say any more about how incredible it is. And we're going to hit comments real quick and then we'll bolt out. But anything you want to say in closing, Lee?
I don't know. I can meet that, but I mean, for me, this week has been really good because it's been revisiting an artist that I've really loved. Probably, I mean, it hasn't hit me as much as you. With that being said, but man, I love this band. I think they're very special. I think they're very underrated. I want more Americans to listen to them. Really, I feel like they have very much an English sound, but just so many people in America like just never even really gave them time of day or never heard of them. So I feel like they're underrated over here in the States, and it's just a different experience. But they have a lot of diehard fans here in the States, just like you, Jeff.
Yeah.
So that's worth noting too. It's just
Oh, absolutely, man.
I watching those videos of them in Europe, like live in Lorelei, we're talking 20,000 people, and people wearing
Huge.
the paint and like
Huge.
doing the whole thing, and it's
Yep.
like that wouldn't happen here in the States.
But
So they're a phenomenon.
I do think they, like you said, they could have been that much bigger. And again, Fish and all the guys in the band have kind of come full circle, and they've become friends with one another. They've even done at a Fish show, Mark, Steve, Pete. I don't know if Ian came out. I don't think he did. I know Mark and Pete did, and I'm pretty sure. I'm sorry, Mark, Pete, and Steve came out. I don't think Ian played, and they did Forgotten Sons and Market Square Heroes, I believe.
Oh yeah.
Now this is going way back. This is probably '97 or no, 197. Might have been 2013. Nah, one 2013 either. I'd have to look. It's on YouTube. Look it up. Fish with ex Marillion guys. I forget
Okay.
what year it is. Maybe it was like early 2000s because Fish's voice wasn't completely shot. It is now. I mean, it's very sad watching clips of him now. He can't do it, and whatever they're doing in the studio to clean it up, he roached himself. He beat the shit out of his vocals. He's a lot lower register and huskier now. The last album he did, Weltschmerz, is got some really good songs on it. I don't know again how much they're auto tuning and fixing. I believe quite a bit because when he tries to pull off some of the live Marillion stuff and even sing it lower, it's like he did. I think he did script on this last little mini tour that he did in December, and it's like, oh here, how do you say? Oh here I get. I can't do it because I can't hit that note because I roached
But
it.
it's
But he's way lower. He's at least an octave and a half lower, and it's just like, man, dude, I love you, buddy. You are like one of my favorite singers of all time and one of my favorite rock stars of all time. But just hang it up. And he is apparently after this final tour for this when he goes back out in 2022, I think, in the summer or whatever. But yeah, just an incredible band that deserves all the accolades that they get and deserves a wider audience, and especially these first four albums and even the H material. There's some really good stuff there.
yeah.
And it should be noted that Marillion, around, I think it was an Arachnophobia, were the first band to ever do a crowdfunding thing.
Marillion.com, I think, was it?
Yep.
It's the first
Or maybe it
crowdfunding.
was Marillion.com. Yeah.
I think that's why
They
the name was that.
they harnessed the power. Yeah, they harnessed the power of the internet and made it work for them. And they're not signed to a record label. Their label is Racket Records, which is theirs, and they have their own self-contained studio. They produce their own records generally, and generally they're really good. And they provide a lot of live material, DVDs, and they're kind of a business model that a lot of other bands could and should try to do, but they don't need massive distribution because they're such a cult band, as you say, and their fans are rabid and they buy everything and they want everything. And
Yeah,
let's hit some comments quick before we roll, dude.
sounds good.
Uh, what we got here? Are you in the midst of a Killing Joke? Yeah, we talked about this. So yeah, so Nick talked about it. We are going to do a Killing Joke deep dive soon, probably in February, I would hope. Um, haven't heard that one. Yeah, man, we're gonna do it. We're gonna hit them all because I own them all,
That's gonna be a
and
marathon.
I think that's gonna be a long one. Yeah, but it may just be me and Nick, man. I don't know. I liked how we did this and we wrapped this in 3 hours. It's a good chunk of time, and we got deep into all this stuff. It was
Yeah,
great.
it's a good dynamic with two people.
I see. Nick is getting study before making another steam. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. The gas mask. Callan, I'm gonna get you on one here, dude. But I got to talk to you a little bit because I got to know where we're gonna meet each other on the road. I'd love to have you on though. It's an interesting one, not very well liked by many. Oh, Killing Joke. I don't know if I agree with that. Pandemonium. Yep. Love their modern here. So do I. Nighttime, fantastic album. Yes, sir. But my favorite, brighter than a thousand suns. I sound like I'm drunk and I'm really not, but my voice is really rough. What do we got here? Both self-titles ruled. Yes, I agree. Yes, it is the same fish. He was on Inside the Electric Castle.
Oh, I
Arion
didn't know
Inside
that.
the Electric Castle. Um, and we got one of these dickwads. Scott, I started with the Fish albums, but it was long after he had left, so transition wasn't as hard. Yes, and I would agree that that is easier when you start with Script for a Jester's Tear, like I did in 1983 as a junior in high school. Man, it's hard to let that go. It is so hard to let that go. I can imagine at the time. Yes, dude, it was devastating. Yeah, I guess, but the problem I have with that is the same problem I have with, you know, Jerry Cantrell not being able to use Alice in Chains when Lane died. I would I would agree if only like Steve Rothery was left, or I would agree if maybe it was just Ian and Steve or Ian and Pete. And, I think that those four guys have a right to that legacy. But I see where you're coming from and I don't disagree, but I don't fully agree. So, anybody got any questions yet? We're going to probably roll out of here in a few minutes. I think we only got up to like 12, 11 or 12 people at one point, which I understand because this is a pretty niche band. And, Lee, I want to thank you so much for helping me out. My voice has been in and out. It's been better than when we started. But dude, I hope you enjoyed doing this.
That was fun.
And we're gonna have to get you on for another one. I think you and I are gonna discuss King Crimson down the road.
Yeah, I think
Um,
Prague is where we overlap the
yeah, I
most.
think it is too.
Yeah,
Yes, possibly the all the stuff up through like 90125.
yeah,
Um, and those are definite possibilities. Maybe Genesis too. I know I'm having Chuck on for Genesis, and yes, for sure, Chuck is definitely in for those. So maybe you'll be our third. I am going to try to limit these to three people going forward for a while, four at the most, when there's a big discography. I don't mind doing it at four with, I wouldn't mind having one more person here. We might have gone an extra hour, but I'm trying not to do these 9 hour, 7 hour slogs. They're tough because I got to pay attention to everything more fully, and it's tough to do. Plus, I think doing
thanks,
them like
Scott.
this, two and three people, it lets each person really expand on what they think and feel. When you got five or six people, man, it's like, okay, what was your thing? Okay, we got to move on, and that's just how it feels. So, Scott, thank you for joining us, man. Anybody that joined tonight, I thank you. I'm gonna take a piss, and I'm gonna get a little bite to eat here, and I'm going to fire another stream up and send some links out to some of the guys that are out there. Really appreciate you guys hanging in there. And yeah, man, this was so much fun because digging into this band that means so much to me. It's just It's hard to explain how much this band has meant to me over the last 30 plus years, 35 years, almost, well, 40 years actually. And yeah, 40 years. Yeah, 83, 93, 2003, 13. Yep, 40 years next year. And, if you don't know this band, go check them out on Spotify. Check them out on YouTube. Doesn't cost you anything. And if you really want to get some of those 40th anniversary editions, you better move, because I can guarantee you they're not going to hang around long, and they're not reprinting them. That I know for a fact.
Yeah.
Fish has said they're not redoing them. This is it. There's not a big enough market for them, as far as worldwide. I've heard that there was only 10,000 copies, or I may be wrong, 8,000 copies. So if you want them, you got to go get them, and they are more than worth the price. I mean, value for money. Those in the Jethro Tull sets, insane. Conversely, you got the King Crimson sets where you got 40 CDs, but it's all the live material, which I could never slog through, and they're $200, $300, $400. It's crazy, but so Lee, thank you so much. I'm going to send links out. Are you done for the night, or are you going to hang? Or?
I think I am.
All right, man.
But I really appreciate it, man. This is great. I'm sure we'll do something like this again in the future. I think
we
got a
will.
Good dynamic, man. And yeah, for anybody watching live or in the future, please, I hope you really enjoyed learning about Marillion, and amazing band. And I do think that there isn't that much at the end of the day of Marillion commentary on YouTube. I was looking, so I'm hoping that people will find this, several weeks, month, even a year from the future. But yeah, thank you, Jeff. This is a pleasure.
All right, man. Have a good night, everybody. I'll see some of you maybe in a bit. And Lee, thank you so much, man. We're gonna do it again, okay, bud?
Sounds great. See you guys.
Peace out.